right, welcome on into another episode of DCU Daily on Oh So Curious. Well, it's a Monday, it's late in the day, but we are here and there's a lot to talk about. Of course, if you clicked on the thumbnail, you know we have a new Brainiac in the DCU. We know who's going to be playing the role. The role is confirmed. We know who's going to be playing him. And James Gunn himself announced it over the weekend. I was like, James, do it on Friday or do it on Monday. Don't do it on Saturday. You know, then everybody's got to wait to talk about it until Monday. But anyway, we're going to talk about, of course, everything going on in the DCU. Beyond it, of course, we have some updates about Supergirl. We got to talk about maybe a Captain Atom showing up in Creature Commandos Season 2. We have to get into that. And of course, on the MCU front, we now pretty much have confirmation because the second, teaser for Avengers Doomsday has been put online. It's gotten leaked, so we know all the rumors about it were pretty much true. We'll talk about that, and of course, Spider-Man: Brand New Day, a higher resolution trailer of that is out, and it definitely is interesting. We'll talk about it. There's the good, bad, and the ugly, and the Odyssey putting out officially, not a leaked trailer. Thank God Universal got ahead of it, or they actually know how to keep their trailer secret. Christopher Nolan might have a thing or two to do with it. And of course, we're going to talk about the Odyssey trailer. Avatar Fire and Ash opening to a lower than expected, weekend domestically and worldwide. What does that mean for the movie? Is it going to make the kind of money the previous two Avatar movies have made? We'll talk about all of those things and so much more. To do that, we're going to hit that news intro and get this thing started.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. Number two.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding. You're kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chords.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right, okay. I didn't even mention the fact that we had some big developments in the whole Warner Brothers Discovery bidding war today, and we'll be getting into all the details about that as well. And of course, James Cameron doing a number of different interviews across all these different outlets talking about Avatar, what he wants to do in the future, things, just kind of reminiscing at this point about his life. So we'll get into all of those things. So lots of quick hits. There's a lot of what did Gunn say. So, and a certain actor wants to play Constantine once more. So we will get into that and a lot more. But to do that with me today, as always, I've got John. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. A little tired and just kind of dealing with, holiday stuff right now. But outside of that, doing okay. So that's pretty good, but also pretty bad at the same time because it can be a little bit annoying. But I'm ready. I'm ready to just get this holiday over with. But outside of that, I'm excited to talk about everything except more Warner Brothers merger shit. And, David Ellison having a temper tantrum because he can't get what he wants. So, that's neither here nor there.
We'll talk about it. We'll get into all of it. Don't you worry. What I wanted to quickly do is say hello to everybody in the live chat. Honka honka Brainiac. Woo! I think that's what he meant to say. So Caleb's here in the chat. Of course, Monique is watching, saying hello all. Marvelous Monday to you. We got hot with a cold flu bug. Damn, did make some chicken enchilada soup for dinner. Wow, if you can do that with the cold flu bug, I mean, come on now. I would just be like warming up like frozen meals if I had the flu. That is good on you, Monique. Hopefully you're feeling better soon. Hello all from Movie Spud. And no, today we're not talking about Keanu Reeves' Constantine. We're going to talk about a different iteration later in DCU Daily. But yeah, Keanu Reeves, his script is still in the works. So, Keanu is potentially still coming back as in a sequel to his original Constantine movie. Emo Nerd Girl is here. Hello, nerds. Or hey, nerds. Hi, Emo Nerd Girl. Man of Tomorrow has the potential to be the greatest Superman movie. You know, you could say that about every new Superman movie. But it is also, according to James Gunn, not exactly a Superman movie. So we'll see. Game Freakness, hello. You missed the hot takes. That's okay. It's all right. You don't have to apologize. Like, it's okay if you're not here live. That's
I
all
had
right.
a
I mean, we
feeling
got
you
you.
meant red one, not red
Yeah.
nose, because I knew exactly what you were talking about. So don't worry, we already made the
So
correction on there.
it's all good. We took care of it, and we'll have another hot take debate maybe this week. We'll think about it. We'll think about it, and I'll let you guys know what the schedule is for the show this week as we go along. Figure Drawing is here. So hello, Figure Drawing. Of course, Caleb's got a new profile photo. Hello, Ron. Ron's watching live. So there you go. And yes, we will talk about Creature Commandos season 2. So don't you worry. Let's not jump ahead, but we'll get into it. Yeah, Red One and Red Notice are practically the same thing.
I mean,
except,
one is like
you know.
about Santa getting kidnapped, and the other one is about like people on the run from the law. But like, sure, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, but they're, I think, equally as forgettable. But anyway, actually, you know, one of them was surprisingly okay. But anyway, Enterprising is there. So excited for Brainiac. Yes, we'll talk about. Don't you worry, that is the main event of the show. But we have a lot to get through before we get that far. And Silhouetted Animator is here. Thank you for the super chat saying Captain Adam, I should say, supposedly gonna be in Creature Commando season 2. That's probably getting his quantum powers from the quantum unfolding chamber, as it is shutting off with him still in it. I did not hear about that, but you know what? We'll circle back to that super chat because we will talk about it in much more detail. So all the excitement, yes, Collector of Worlds, Brainiac. So with that, John, let's kick things off with some news on the box office front. That's usually where we start our Monday shows. So Avatar 3, Avatar Fire and Ash. Hi, Hunter, by the way. Yeah, we'll get into that later. But Avatar 3 Fire and Ash, it's a movie that we were talking about last week was being projected to open somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 to 100 million dollars. I think the low end they were still predicting somewhere in the mid to high 80s. And that's pretty much where it ended up opening. It opened to $88 million. That's the final updated tally. I think they adjusted it slightly up to 89 million. But essentially it came in below expectations, right? Because you would expect a movie that is following, you know, 2 of the 3 highest grossing movies of all time as a threequel to come in and either, you know, at least improve upon the previous movie and potentially have one of the biggest openings of all time. But if you remember, John, and hello, Tony, how are you doing? We have talked about before, Avatar movies are not known for opening big. Avatar movies are known for opening to sometime, you know, relatively, I mean, this is the 3rd movie, so it's not like there's a whole genre of these. It's not like there's 5 or 6 of them. But they're not really usually opening to Marvel or DC like numbers where they're coming in with like 150, 200 million opening weekend domestically, like Spider-Man Brand New Home, but not Brand New, No Way Home.
That's what I keep saying.
So, yeah, we'll get into that a lot more, Ron. So that's what we're here to talk about. Neja 2's on HBO Max. That's good to know. But essentially, with an $89 million opening weekend domestically and the worldwide number looking in the $345 million range, I think that number is also revised. We'll talk about that a little bit later, the final totals. That is pretty much a 20%, 25% roughly drop from the 440 some odd million that Avatar, the Way of Water did worldwide in its opening weekend. It's also a drop from its domestic weekend because Avatar, The Way of Water made like 134, if I remember correctly, domestically opening weekend. So this is 88. This is higher than the original Avatar that in 2009 that made 77 million opening
Not
weekend.
adjusted for inflation.
Not adjusted for inflation, that's fair. But also you got to remember, like, there's fewer people going to the movies. A big thing like COVID happened, you know, so a lot has changed. But if you go to the next article,
and the thing is also with Way of Water, that was the grandiose return. That was like 13 years later, we finally got a sequel. So of course that was gonna have a big opening. Now that we have it, we're in here, maybe mixed reviews, people not going to the movies, then you know we get this number, so that makes sense that it's a little bit lower. I didn't expect it to be the 80s. I expected it to be the 90s, but even then we have said many times that it's about the longevity. It's about like these movies stay in theaters. Well, these are the only movies I feel like that stay in theaters for a while and get all of their money back eventually.
There you go. Almost. I mean, it wasn't quite 140, but it was in the 130s. I remember. Dude. Oh, 8BQ. Yeah. Look, Fire and Ash. A lot of people. Here's what I've been hearing. A lot of people are saying either it's the best of the trilogy, or it's the worst of the trilogy, and it doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to come into anybody in the middle of anybody's rankings of the three movies so far. Hey, D Cole. So with that said, John, like you mentioned, it's off to a good start. It's not as it's higher in some ways than the original movie, which made at this point I think is sitting at close to $3 billion. It's the highest grossing of all time. And then the sequel to that, Avatar: The Way of Water, clearly opened to a bigger number because, like you said, there was a big gap, like the 13-year wait, whereas here there's like a 3-year wait. Now, I think it's fair to compare though because these two movies, The Way of Water and Fire and Ash, came out only 3 years apart, and they both came out after the pandemic, so they're in a more equal, relatively equal like environment in the theatrical environment and economic climate than the first Avatar in 2009, which came out in a completely different world as far as movies are concerned. Um, all that said, like I think one of you guys were saying in the chat, $2 billion. That's the threshold, right? The first two movies made $2 billion. I want to ask you a question, and then let me kind of like state this, provide some background to this, and then we'll get into the rest of the box office news because there's other movies that came out this weekend as well. But essentially, Avatar, The Way of Water came out a good over like it came out 9 days, like over a week before Christmas that year in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So it had like a good amount of runtime where it had a full weekend, then it had another weekend, and then Christmas happened. So like whereas here with Avatar: Fire and Ash, it's only got 5 days between when it released its opening weekend and Christmas, because Christmas is this Thursday. Now Christmas, because it falls on a Thursday, New Year's Day also falls on a Thursday, or is it Friday, or New Year's Eve falls on a Thursday? I forget how math. But anyway, the point is you have two holiday weekends coming up, like these two extended weekends. Do you think, because this is what some of the industry insiders have been talking about, is even though this opened to a lower number than The Way of Water, Fire and Ash could still, do really well because the second and third weekends will be both holiday weekends. And given how good of a start it's off to, which again, by Avatar standards and by most movies that tend to make $1 billion, $2 billion standards, it's not a big opening. $88 million is not that high relative to like a Marvel movie, for example. But it's got two more holiday weekends to come in, and we've seen what a good holiday weekend could do for movies like Jurassic World this year, or the Minecraft movie. And then after that, like these movies, Avatar movies have legs, like you said, John. Do you think that means it could get 1.5 to $2 billion? Can it get the $2 billion number? Is that just simply unrealistic? Because as far as ratings go, we talked about it last week. It's not as bad. The critics haven't bashed it as much as they bashed the original Avatar, and the audiences love this one more than any Avatar movie so far. So do you think the numbers will be there? Can it actually like make up ground? Because like January, February are usually not very busy at the box office. There's not a lot of new movies coming out.
I don't think, I have said this time and time again. I know Tony disagrees with me, but I don't think it'll get 2 billion. If it does get there, eventually I will not be shocked. However, I don't think, especially with how like movies are not in theaters for very long. I remember, we're talking about how Avatar was in fucking theaters for a goddamn year, and because movies could get away with that, especially if they were making that much money, making bank and all that shit. So like it does make sense. So, there is that. But so usually at best we get 45-day windows, maybe a little bit longer depending on the movie. But this is technically a Disney movie, so they might get like some credence with that because it's Disney. The Almighty Mouse might have some like, okay, we'll keep you in for like a couple more weeks. So there's that. And as well as what you said with January, February. But I don't think like now it's not as special because there is the idea that, it's not a 13-year wait. It was a 3-year wait. So there's that. There is the mixed reaction from critics, and there is a lot of negativity with the Avatar brand of like all the people are like, oh, it's not that great of a franchise, it's not that good. So I think with combined with all of that, I don't think it's going to get to 2 billion. I don't I it's definitely going it's going to get a billion. I don't think it's going to get as fast there as like Zootopia 2, for instance. I don't think it's going to get there at like in 17 days or whatever, but I do think by the time like maybe the end of January it'll get to a billion, maybe a little bit quicker than that. And then and then I don't like I think it'll at that point maybe get to 1.5. I don't think like I'll be nice and say maybe 1.8 to 1.9, but I'm feeling kind of 1.5 mid-range, which is still really good. But if there is credence to the rumors that Disney is not going to give a green light to Avatar 4, if this doesn't make 2 billion, then I don't know. We'll see, but I don't think it'll get to 2 billion. But I don't know if those rumors are true or not, and we'll talk about that. But you know, that's just I don't think it'll get to 2 billion. I think it'll definitely get to a billion. 1.5, maybe 1.8 if I'm being nice.
Yeah. Hey MTG, by the way, everybody saluting the Brainiac. I will say though, like speaking of what MTG is just mentioning and what you just mentioned, John, in that previous article that we had up, if you want to go back to that real quick, they talk about in there that IMAX brought in a good, 50 odd $6 million or something like that. It was, or it was a pretty significant number of the total, which I think is the biggest IMAX opening weekend of the year, and is one of their biggest of all time in general. And then it also like a healthy 50+%, more than half the money that the Avatar made was from premium screens. And of course, James Cameron has been wanting everybody to go see it in IMAX 3D because he feels like the best format to see this in, the biggest screen in 3D, and the best viewing experience possible for you. So with that in mind, and like you said, like these movies have holding power, and the audiences are loving it. I mean, the audiences love the first one. The spectacle of seeing it once in like in a decade, or like the first time ever, and then once in in 13 years, it's not quite the same with this one. But this also has like a sense of finality to it. So if you have invested yourself in these movies for the last couple of viewings, you're more likely to go see this one. The problem becomes, I think, for some people, is this a movie that you're going to want to watch more than one time? Because that's where I think a movie can, make or break when it comes to $1 billion, especially $2 billion. You want to go see it multiple times. And I think that's going to be ultimately the key. But it's off to a great start. And behind it, like it was a pretty good box office weekend overall, because you had three other movies that scored at least $15 million with the Angel Studios David, that made $22 million. And then you had, of course, The Housemaid, that made $19 million. The Housemaid, of course, from Lionsgate. That's the one with Brendan Sklenar, who everybody thinks could be a good Batman, and Amanda Seyfried, and of course Sydney Sweeney. And then SpongeBob movie, The Search for SquarePants from Paramount, came in with 15.6 million. So that's a pretty solid top five. And all around, I think Avatar is off to a good start. I think this movie, I'm gonna say it out right now, John. I think this Avatar Fire and Ash, this third movie in the franchise, is going to cross $2 billion, because I just don't. I've just learned to not doubt James Cameron. Like James Cameron is, you doubt that man and he will always prove you wrong. This is the only director who's got 3 movies in the 5 highest grossing movies of all time. So I think that, Canadian James Cameron, there you go, Tony, will get this across.
Here's the thing, I'm not going to be shocked. It's just like with all the stuff going on right now, with how movie theaters are, with how cinemas are, and with how now it has more of a mixed reaction. That's why I'm like kind of like doubting. I don't know if it'll get there, but like if it does, I won't be shocked. I'm not going to be upset. I'd rather the top grossing movies go to Avatar rather than the next MCU or Star Wars Drek. I understand they're all owned by the same fucking company. That's not the point. But like, I prefer James Cameron getting the W rather than, whatever blockbuster crap that Disney puts out and expects greatness and it's not. So
yeah, I mean, he seems ready to do a few other things. Like I think we've talked about it last week at length that even if they are making a fourth and maybe a fifth Avatar, and James Cameron said that he would always direct it himself, but he might want to do a few other things along the way. He might want a bit of a break along the way. I think a lot of people don't expect Avatar: Fire and Ash to make 2 billion, but I do think James Cameron is, again, he just knows like how to make movies that make money. In fact, we'll talk about a little bit about what he thinks about other directors not quite getting their due, who are making very popular movies. So we'll get into that later because he's been doing a lot of interviews around this movie's promotion. But as far as the records that Avatar: Fire and Ash did break, because you might be thinking, oh yeah, it underperformed. So what record did it break? Well, at 347 million worldwide, it is the second biggest global opening ever for James Cameron, of course, only behind Avatar: The Way of Water, which opened to $441.7 million. Of course, it's not quite like for like because it didn't open in all the same markets, but it's still doing well. It actually had a really good number in China as well. It wasn't Zootopia 2 numbers in China, but it did really well there. At $89 million domestic, which is the final tally from Monday afternoon, it becomes the second biggest global opening for James Cameron, again, only behind The Way of Water. It is the second biggest MPA global opening of 2025, aka, that doesn't account Ne Zha 2 and other Chinese movies that don't go through the MPA for ratings. Those don't count. So the movies behind it would be Zootopia 2, or actually this would be ahead. Zootopia 2 would be ahead of it. And then, Lilo and Stitch would be behind it. So you got 3 Disney movies kind of sandwiched in there with Avatar between
and
Zootopia
then that's
2 and
not
Lilo
all.
and Stitch.
That's not all,
So,
folks.
yeah.
And we have more for international stuff.
It's
right
all these
here.
different markets, which we don't have to talk about all the individual markets, but this is the best opening for an Avatar movie in China, the second biggest opening in the Middle Kingdom year to date with $57.6 million, aka the second biggest opening of the year in China, and the best for the trilogy. It only came in behind Zootopia 2 because Zootopia 2, of course, been running wild since it came out. And it did actually overperform The Way of Water's opening there, which opened to 56 million. So there you go. China is coming in a lot stronger, and like some of the other ones recently. Hello, CC Black. We're going to get into more Marvel talk a little bit later. But the other record I wanted to point out, John, while we all know that this is the longest runtime for an Avatar movie at 3 hours 17 minutes, which beats Avatar: The Way of Water by 5 minutes. So Fire and Ash comes in a little bit higher. This movie now has Disney heading to $6 billion worldwide for 2025. That is going to be the best the post-COVID annual global haul for any Hollywood studio. No movie studio has made that much money worldwide since COVID. I mean, Warner Brothers was the first to $4 billion, but remember, right around the time they did that, they were sort of tapering off their movies for the year. So by the end of the year, by the time Avatar's money is collected, because remember, even though a good chunk of what Avatar is going to make is going to be technically in 2026, it will still count towards the 2025 tally because the movie came out in 2025. That's just how they do the math. So ultimately, Disney will still end up with the highest gross of the year. And you talk about Disney is in the shitter earlier in the year with all kinds of misses, but there's a reason why Disney's such a behemoth. There's a reason why they have all those records. There's a reason why they completely dominated Hollywood in the 2010s. They are going to have a $6 billion year, which will be far and away the biggest of any studio and the biggest since the COVID pandemic. So with that said, John, the Disney's demise, was greatly exaggerated. Like the rumors of Disney's demise were greatly exaggerated. And I just want to answer this question before we move into one other notable box office achievement from this past weekend. Bob Jones, I thought it said Bobo Jones. Bob Jones is asking, hello, Bob. Do you think, or hi, Bob, if you're For All Mankind fan.
I'm getting through it. I got 2 more episodes left of season 3. So
question is, do you think Avengers Doomsday could pass Avatar and become the biggest film of all time? Or do you think it will pass $2 billion? Okay, one, Doomsday is not the biggest film of all time because it's not even come out yet. But can Doomsday pass Avatar? No. That's just not going to happen. I mean, John, that to me is a pretty easy answer. Avengers Doomsday will probably have a hard time crossing Avengers Infinity War's box office, no less Endgame and Avatar or Avatar: The Way of Water. Do you think it will pass $2 billion?
Doomsday or Avatar?
Doomsday. I think I
That shit's
misread the
not passing.
question.
I mean,
Yeah.
Doomsday's not passing a billion. I'll make that.
Oh,
I'll
really?
make that claim right now. I don't think
Wow.
it's gonna make a billion. I don't. I think people are too disenfranchised with MCU for too long with the MCU for too long that it's not even gonna. It's not even gonna get to maybe close enough. Similar with Spider-Man. I don't think it'll get a billion. And we still have that bet going with C Black over there, but I don't think it will. I don't think it'll get a billion. Maybe just reaching it. I don't know. It's not going to pass any of the Avatar movies. I know for a fact. It's just the MCU. Yeah, because Deadpool and Wolverine, like that was a long time coming. Like that's Avengers Doomsday. Like people are fucking pissed that Steve Rogers is coming back, and that's not a good thing to like start off as like the first tease we get to this movie, and people are already rioting in the streets. That's not a good sign right there. But
But
I don't think it'll make a bill. If it does, then it does, whatever. But I personally don't think it's gonna get there. But we'll see. We'll see.
look, I personally think it will make a billion. I think it can probably get to 1.5. It will depend on how good it is and whether it's really watchable. Like, and when I say watchable, I mean like, are people gonna go see it more than once, and go see it 2, 3, 4, 5 times? I know people who went to see Avengers Endgame 6, 7 times, 8 times. Are we gonna get that kind of repeat viewership? That's what's gonna determine if
We'll
Doomsday
see.
will end up being able to get anywhere close to like the $3 billion basically that Avatar made in 2009 and all the successive re-releases. So of course, John, there was one other movie studio that had a big milestone to celebrate this past weekend, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, I think Spider-Man, by the way, will make a billion. Spider-Man is like as much of a easy hit, free hit at the box office as Batman tends to be, even more so sometimes. But anyway, Blumhouse and Atomic Monster have now passed the $1 billion mark at the worldwide box office for the first time, John. For a studio that is entirely focused on horror movies, I mean, of course, Blumhouse and now Atomic Monster are kind of not a combined entity, but they're basically conjoined because James Wan is over at Blumhouse now, which is under Universal Pictures. Are you surprised? And what is your reaction to this? The $1 billion mark for a year that has been amazing for horror movies. That something like this happens for one of the premier horror studios of Hollywood.
I mean, I think Blumhouse is very hit and miss. I mean, they had like some hits in regards to both box office and quality, like Black Phone 2 and stuff like that. Then you had like big box office stuff with like Conjuring Last Rites, but the audience and
That
critic
movie
scores were
went
not that great.
insane.
And then you had a huge box office like with FNAF. Then Megan M3gan 2.0 tanked on both. People said it sucked and it didn't make its money back. And then the Monkey was kind of like a hidden gem where it made a little bit of money and some people liked it, but it wasn't huge. So it had like a whole grab bag of stuff this year. I saw The Drop, I saw The Monkey, and I saw Black Phone 2, and I saw FNAF 2. The Monkey was excellent. That's in my like top 5 of the year. Black Phone 2, that's top 10. I didn't see Conjuring. I haven't seen any of them since the second one. I thought Drop was really good. I would say that's a bit of a gem. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's a good like horror thriller. I didn't see M3gan because the first one sucked, so I'm like, fuck that. I saw FNAF 2 for the review we did on the Cool Kids, but
Right.
yeah, that also was painfully mediocre. So
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Ultimately, I in a record year for horror, which continues to have really good return on investment ROI, like Monique is
yeah,
saying.
because they're cheap to make and they make
I mean,
like
that's why
double their
Clayface might do really
money
well next
in
year.
like a
Yeah.
weekend. So
Exactly. So hopefully, we'll continue to see more of that in the future. Bob Jones asking, do you think the Odyssey makes a billion? I'm curious now. How Nolan will do the creators, have you seen the trailer? We'll talk about that more when we talk about the trailer itself. If you want to get my one word answer, yes, I do think it will make $1 billion. But we will talk about it in more detail when we get to the trailer, which we will talk about later in the show. But John, let's switch focus for a moment. I'm going to walk everybody through the latest in the Warner Brothers Discovery bidding war. If you want, you can stick around for the reactions, but let's just quickly talk about what happened today, because we had some interesting developments. So, of course, you guys know it's been going on for a while now, and the story is that as of last check, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders, the board had recommended to the shareholders that they're going to stick with the Netflix offer. So they should just reject the Paramount offer, because the Paramount offer is the hostile takeover bid going directly to the shareholders and asking them to tender their shares to Paramount so they can do a hostile takeover, as it's called in the business. So now, of course, over the weekend we were hearing from various different sources, like an ex-Disney strategist who is like a hedge fund investor, and he was talking about how, look, there's still a shot that Paramount wins this, that they will get Warner Brothers. He saw a path. And well, as the story went on, John, if you skip to the next article, over the weekend, we got more insight into what the shareholders are thinking, Warner Brothers shareholders. Of course, and here you see the headline from Reuters: Harris Associates, which are the 5th largest shareholder in Warner Brothers. And they hold like a 5% roughly share in Warner Brothers, which you might not seem like much, but you know, it's a publicly traded company, so a lot of people own like very small percentages. So the 5th largest, even being 5%, is significant. And then a lot of the bigger shareholders, what they call the institutional shareholders, they will likely not express their interest one way or the other or tender their shares until the very deadline, as far, you know, at really late in the game. But the fact that the 5th largest shareholder was talking about over the weekend they're open to a revised Paramount bid meant that the door hadn't quite shut on Paramount bidding in this, you know, war for getting Warner Brothers, as much as Warner Brothers Discovery would like to have you believe, you know, with having Ted Sarandos and basically the co-CEOs of Netflix walking in and doing a whole tour of the Warner Brothers backlot and doing a Q&A session with their employees. You would think that this was a done deal, but apparently, you know, the door is more open, or at least ajar, from over the weekend. So as we go on in the story, John, we go to the next article, we'll keep on walking through what happened. Of course, Ellisons have been playing hardball with this deal the whole time, right? They've been incrementally increasing their offer, and the reason why Warner Bros. Discovery's board rejected their hostile takeover bid, or at least, you know, recommended to the shareholders to not go for it, is because they were not convinced that the source of the financing was solid enough, that the money was there. They said the Ellisons just weren't backing up the offer with their own money the way that the Warner Brothers Discovery team wanted it to. That they were basically saying, and this is the key point, that the way things were worded, the Ellison family trust that was backing up the money coming from the sovereign wealth funds and other loans in the Paramount offer, the all-cash deal for $108 billion to buy Warner Brothers, all of Warner Brothers, the part that the Ellisons were backing up from their family trust, Warner Brothers Discovery was saying that could be pulled out without any consequences based on the language in their offer. So, of course, that and a few other criticisms, which is what they cited for the rejecting the deal. Now, as a result of that, we saw today, John, if you go to the next article, it looks like the Ellisons heard the criticism and they answered. And Papa Ellison, aka Larry Ellison, one of the richest men in the world, agreed in a revised bid from Paramount for Warner Brothers Discovery.
Looks like Daddy had to come in and sort everything out.
And he agreed to personally guarantee the Paramount bid for Warner Brothers in a revised offer, which is specifically what the criticism was in the initial rejection last week from the Warner Brothers Discovery board. The other thing that they did, they also upped their termination fee from $5 billion and matched the termination fee that Netflix agreed to, which is $5.8 billion. So that's almost an entire extra $1 billion. So now they're level on that number. So basically, if Warner Brothers decides to go with the Paramount deal and Paramount decides to walk away from it,
no, that's the most botched plastic surgery I've ever seen in my life.
They would be paying them $5.8 billion. So they're pretty much on par there. Now the other thing that they've done is they've moved back the deadline for shareholders to tender their shares to Paramount from January 8th to January 21st. So that's an extra 2 weeks roughly. And with that said, the shareholders now have a couple extra weeks to decide if they want to tender their shares to Paramount. They could technically, by the way, keep this number, pushing further back and all the way till the annual meeting for Warner Brothers, which takes place usually in the summer months. This year it took place in early June. So next June is when it's expected that the actual shareholder meeting that will happen for Warner Brothers Discovery, that's where there will be an official vote for the shareholders to approve the deal. Because the board already signed the deal with Netflix, but the shareholders still have to approve it. And basically Paramount has until then to find a way to wiggle their way in and, sweep Warner Brothers from under Netflix's noses. So with all that said, let's move on to the next thing, John, because I wanted to go through a few minor details in the revised
Every time. Every time.
in the revised deal, the offer that Paramount has put up for Warner Brothers. If you scroll down here, we can go through some of the other tenets of that revised offer. So they actually did a good job here in comicbook.com. You can just hold there on the screen. So the one thing that did not change is that the offer from Paramount still is for $30 a share. That means the overall value of the deal is still the same, $108 billion. That did not change because people were thinking, that the revised offer would mean more money, that then the Paramount would raise the actual total value of what they were putting up. That did not change. The personal guarantee was put in place for Larry Ellison, and that's guaranteeing the $40.4 billion that Warner Brothers Discovery previously said was not completely guaranteed, even though, they kept saying the Ellisons did that we're good for the money. But they're still only putting up $12 billion of their own actual money, meaning the rest of that money is coming from the sovereign wealth funds, and the personal guarantee just means if those sovereign wealth funds back out, then Larry Ellison will pay up for that. And then Larry Ellison will also support the termination fee that I talked about earlier. And then, Paramount promised to publish documents saying that the Ellison Family Trust is not going to make any changes that will adversely affect the value of the trust, so that basically making sure that the money's not there to pay for the Paramount deal to buy Warner Brothers in case the other sovereign wealth fund partners back out, and then the transaction terms were changed. This is a bit of a more nuanced thing, John. So I didn't actually know about this, but this was interesting. So one of the reasons why Netflix actually won this whole bidding war, or at least did for the time being, they were like, we don't care what you do with how you run your business until the deal is done for Warner Brothers. And they said, if you decide to renew the deals of any of your executives, change their pay packages, we do not care until our deal closes with you. You can do what you need. If you need to refinance your debt and take out new loans and refinance them for better rates, you can do that you have flexibility to do it. What Paramount had said in their deal, they had put restrictions in there, basically saying you cannot renew your executives' deals, aka James Gunn, Peter Safran, Michael DeLuca, Pam Abdy. If they were to get new deals while this sale, was in progress, Paramount would have to sign off on that stuff. They wanted that control pretty much immediately. They also didn't allow Warner Brothers to go out and refinance their debt, which they're going to need to do so they can split it into two chunks and put a bunch of it onto Discovery Global. And of course, Paramount wanted the whole thing, so they were like, you're not going to do a spin-off anyway, but we get to call those shots even before everything closes. So Warner Brothers wanted that flexibility. Now in this new revised offer, they are getting that flexibility because Paramount was like, all right, fine, we will, let you have that. And all of that said, the other condition this entire offer is based on is that Warner Brothers Discovery does not go through spinning off their global networks and turn, the Discovery Global entity, which basically, why would you do that? Because Paramount is buying the whole, kibosh. So they don't want to lose the networks along the way. So all of that said, the big highlight here is that the Ellisons have actually backed up for reals this time the money that they're putting up in the sale. And so if any of the sovereign wealth funds from Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, or Qatar back out, the Ellisons will pay up, and that's guaranteed now. And but the deal is still this for the same amount of money. They haven't actually raised their price. Now, if you go to the next thing here, John, this is what Paramount was up to today. Netflix on their side, they just refinanced the chunk of their bridge loan, a big chunk of their bridge loan to buy Warner Brothers, the deal that they signed with the company. This is a little more common because they just did it. They had a set of loans, the bridge loan they call it, that when they initially signed the deal. Now they've sort of structured it into a few different loans, including a revolving credit facility, which is, basically like a line of credit card sort of a situation, so that it's basically got better interest rates for Netflix, and it's more structured long term. So basically Netflix, if you want to do the TLDR of it all, Netflix is moving forward financially, basically with keeping in mind that this deal is done. They're behaving like they are the new owners of Warner Brothers. They're just the new owners in waiting. Meanwhile, Paramount is still putting up, new offers, trying to address the concerns of Warner Brothers Discovery, almost like the bidding war is still happening. It seems to be one-way traffic.
You know what it's like? You know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like the ending of The Graduate, where like Catherine Ross is about to get married off to somebody, and that's Netflix, and then like to the groom, and like that's Netflix, and then you have Dustin Hoffman banging on the glass, and that's Paramount being like, no, don't do it. But in this reality, she gets married off to not Dustin Hoffman. And then, they actually get married while Paramount's just crying because, oh, we just have Paramount now. What do we do? So,
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good analogy. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to one other thing I wanted to get into here, because we talked about Paramount, we talked about Netflix. What about Warner Brothers Discovery, right? Because WBD's board had something to say about it as the day went on, and they just advised their shareholders, which are of course, looking at the offer from Paramount and thinking, do we want to tender our shares to them, or do you want to stick with Netflix, the deal that the board signed off on? So the board from Warner Brothers today advised their shareholders not to take any action as they review Paramount's amended takeover offer. So now we're basically going in that same cycle from a couple of weeks ago with the hostile takeover bid, and they took a week or so for Warner Brothers board to make a decision, and they ultimately decided the Netflix offer was still better. And now they're doing the same thing. So we're kind of like in the same cycle one more time, and Paramount is basically, they said, look, we're going to consider the Paramount offer. And so don't do anything yet. Don't tender your shares to Paramount yet. Even though Paramount is saying in their latest offer, we advise shareholders of Warner Brothers who think our offer is better, which they clearly believe it is, to tender their shares and basically give us that pathway for a hostile takeover. Netflix, meanwhile, is like, all right, well, we're just going to keep on going the way we have been, because in our eyes this deal is done. Now, what does all of this mean, John? If you go to the next article in CNBC, they put up this like nice TLDR of it all, which kind of gives us an idea, where are we going next, right? Because we thought this was done. Apparently it's not done. If you scroll down a little bit, John, we'll go through the key points in this article, and you guys are welcome to find this for yourself. It's a great read. It's not very long. But the Paramount executives, of course, have now started to talk directly to the shareholders of Warner Brothers Discovery. And so far, it looks like they're getting enough interest that they feel, they don't need to clearly raise their number. Like the price, the overall price that they're paying for Warner Brothers in their latest offer is the same that they were paying when they first announced the hostile takeover bid. So that must mean that they're getting enough interest. And we talked about it. The fifth largest shareholder for Warner Brothers over the weekend was open to a revised Paramount offer. So, and it looks like they're getting enough traction that they clearly don't feel the need to raise the price. However, John, the question is, with the revisions that Paramount made, addressing all the points for that Warner Brothers had cited why they chose Netflix instead, basically now brings the two offers in parity, meaning that the offers, the one that Netflix signed off on with Warner Brothers and the Paramount offer now are kind of even odds. Like there's not much separating them anymore. So what they're expecting now is, do the shareholders want a bidding war? Because because shareholders could start tendering their shares to Paramount, which might force Netflix to up their offer, because they might feel that their deal is slipping away from them. Or vice versa, if not enough shareholders tender their offer to Paramount, Paramount might be compelled to raise their offer, especially if the board says, no, this is still not good enough for Warner Brothers. And then Netflix would have to raise their offer. So basically, we may still have a bidding war on our hands, John, like a true bidding war where Netflix and Paramount are going head to head and they keep raising their prices. And like I said, they can go both keep on doing this up until like June of next year in 2026, when the annual meeting for Warner Brothers shareholders will play out, and that's where the company's shareholders will actually vote to approve the Netflix deal. Until then, Paramount could come in and do a hostile takeover if that's what they go. If they get enough, if they get a 51%, of the shares from Warner Brothers tendered to them by the shareholders, or if they don't, then Netflix could still win out with the vote. So, all of that said, John, I want to get your take on this. Where do you think things stand? Because the Ellisons technically have more of their own money to throw at this, but Netflix also like has a lot of market power, so they'll be able to just keep on getting loans, and if they want to up their offer. So who wins out at the end? Like, do you think this will change? Do you think it's a done deal at this point that Netflix will end up buying Warner Brothers, or do you think Paramount has a real shot?
I mean, I hate both. I hate that both could have a chance to, get Warner Brothers, but Netflix just seems to be extending their movie. This is purely a movie standpoint, and it also caters to what Zaslav wants to do and split the company. And
Mm,
Netflix is only taking the streaming movie side and HBO and that kind of shit. Meanwhile, it seems like Ellison wants to do this for very political reasons, and he's kind of in bed
dude,
with a certain someone. So
if you go off the
that's,
controversy from this past weekend and what's going on with CBS News, I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna get more of that with CNN in the future, then I don't think I want Paramount to have anything to do
I
with
mean, yeah.
Warner Brothers
Although
Discovery.
Jared Kushner did pull out, like his firm pulled out of like the
Well, no, there
deal
was this whole
with
like 60
Paramount.
Minutes
So
controversy over the weekend. So like it's like what's happening at CBS News with their new Paramount ownership. People are wondering if the Ellisons have a similar plan for CNN.
yeah,
Basically, like it's just that has me worried. By the way, hello, Mr. Beaten Path. How are you doing today? Yeah, I guess it comes down to the lesser of two evils. I mean, if you are a movie producer, you'll be wondering which is better for you. If Warner Brothers continues to operate as its own studio after being bought by Netflix, and I think that's good. That's good. Fewer people will get fired at the end of the day. That's what the Netflix CEOs said in that town hall on the Warner Brothers lot last week. They assured them that, look, we intend to let you guys do your thing. So we're not going to be, there's not going to be as many people getting fired, was the insinuation of that. Whereas Paramount, clearly, it looks like they will probably try to do a lot more consolidation based on the targets that they've both referenced in their deal packages. So yeah, I guess this is the lesser of two evils, and it depends on where you guys land on this. Let us know in the comments down below. Who do you think at this point is the better suitor? Do you think Netflix is the better option to own Warner Brothers Discovery, or do you think
bingo.
Paramount is going to be the better option? Where do you think things are going to go? Let us know in the comments down below. In the meantime, we're going to move on. We still have a lot to talk about, and the next thing we're going to talk about is some movie talk madness, and more specifically, John, we're going to talk about the Odyssey, of
Yes,
course.
yes. Just like, can we just both agree that this needs to be injected into America's veins like yesterday? I just watching the trailer. It's like I'm already Nolan. You already had me when you said you were going to adapt the Odyssey. You already had me. You didn't have to drop anything else. I was already here on my knees, sucking the glorious knob of Nolan. You didn't need to drop anything. Yet here you are. You're dropping prologues. You're dropping. You didn't need to do that. We all were going to see it. We know this is going to make $1 billion. So just like, don't even try. You could just be like, I am directing a new movie, and everyone will come to see it. So, it's just you don't need to do anything, man. Why do you didn't have to drop this? But here we are. Here we are. So just like, come on now. What are we doing here? Come on. You didn't need to do this. Yeah, you did. I am grateful, but I'm just gonna say this. This better be like 6 hours long. I'd watch it. I'd watch it with no intermission. I would not drink liquids the entire day, and I would gladly sit down to watch a 6-hour Nolan Odyssey movie. Fuck James Cameron and his 3-hour Blue People crap. Give me a 6-hour Nolan movie and I'm fine. I will be awake. If I'm not awake, I will drink a 5-hour energy and watch the entire thing. So just give it to me. Just give it to me now. If you could just like teleport it to my brain, I'll do that. That's fine. That's probably the next step for him, using an entire movie for IMAX cameras. Boom. We're already at that. We're like, next is like, we're going to get Neuralink straight to the head. So like, you know, that's the next Nolan movie. We'll see who gets there first, James Cameron or Nolan. But, you know.
Well, I think Nolan wants you to go see it in a theater. I don't know if he wants to do the whole like inject it into your brain thing. That might be more of a James Cameron thing, if anything. But I will say this though. This is, from a marketing move standpoint, already superior to what Marvel's been doing recently with those leaks, regardless of whether that was on purpose or not. The fact that every single teaser is dropping, seemingly from the same French theater of all places. Somebody go track down whatever French theater is leaking those Doomsday trailers with the
we baguette. We do
I'm like, it's ridiculous because like I'm so glad that, you know, Christopher Nolan and Universal Pictures got ahead of that. They're like, and they're the ones who put a 6-minute prologue in front of just like 50 IMAX screens for just the few hundred people that got to see the reruns of Sinners and one battle after another. So I'm like, okay, you know, they can be snobby too, but I do appreciate that they put this online for everybody to see. I've seen it on different size screens, different audio and you know, home theater systems. But watching this trailer, I will say, on some level, I was a little underwhelmed, but I will say this: the bigger the screen and the better the audio system I watched this on, the more grand this looked. The cinematography in this, the way it's shot, the you know, obviously everything looks real, and I bet you there's a lot of hidden VFX in a lot of these shots. But holy shit, it's just, we live in a world today where, and I hate to use this, you know, as a comparison because it feels like I'm dunking on Supergirl, but you compare this trailer to the Supergirl trailer, and one looks like cinema and the other one looks like a movie. And I hope you know what I mean by that, in the sense that Supergirl just looks like there's a lot of bland, you know, brown, earthish color tones that sort of blend together, and composition isn't very clear, and the lighting isn't, you know, the best. Whereas Christopher Nolan here, probably the greatest director working in the business today, every single frame, every little bit of detail in that seems to be, you know, just crafted from a singular vision, which it is, and that's what Nolan said he wanted to do with his next project after Oppenheimer. And you see that this movie just feels like it's tangible. It's making you know, a Homer's epic, like a classic epic, into something that feels real. I will say this though, I felt like I wanted more from this trailer, given all the stuff we were meant to get from the prologue. Movie? No, I know. But then again, I thought to myself, okay, this is not going to give us a story. This is not a story trailer per se. And for what you would call a teaser trailer, because that's what most first trailers are, this thing looks amazing. And like I said, watch it on the best screen you have available to you. If you don't have a good sound system, put on the best headphones that you've got. And it just looks epic, and you get to see a lot of the cast. Not every big cast member that you know, every A-lister that is in this movie we see in this, but you still get to see a majority of them. You see Anne Hathaway, you see Tom Holland, who are playing the wife and the son of Odysseus. You see, of course, Matt Damon as the lead. John, all around, if you look at this trailer, did it raise your level of excitement for the movie? And now do you think, and I think this question was brought up earlier in the chat, is it likely that Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey will make $1 billion given the trailer that we have seen today?
Yes. And this is also partially the reason why we might not see Spider-Man make $1 billion, because everyone is still going to see The Odyssey. So,
and if you remember, John, Spider-Man Brand New Day is not going to get IMAX screens because they signed the deal. IMAX did with Universal.
Of course they did, because this was entirely filmed with IMAX. And so, Nolan is like,
It's
Come on. Like, do I even need to do anything right now? Come on now.
like, remember I just mentioned at the start of the show that Avatar Fire and Ash like had the biggest IMAX opening of the year, and like a good 40 some odd percentage of the money that it made in opening weekend came from IMAX and other premium format screens. A lot of those premium formats and especially IMAX will be devoted exclusively for like a 3 or 4 week run for the Odyssey alone, which, like you said, because Spider-Man Brand New Day comes out, what, like a 2 weeks after the Odyssey or something like that, so it's not that far behind it, and it's just not going to get those premium screens. So you're right. I do think that will have an effect in the box office for Brand New Day, but maybe that's why they're stacking, with the Brand New Day with all those other MCU characters. But nonetheless, I mean, John, there was one other thing I wanted to go through, because while the Odyssey trailer is great, last week we got a new poster for the movie, which usually, goes to tell you that, okay, poster, trailer. So we got the poster, now we got the trailer. But if you look at the poster again, it seemed like there was, some backlash initially when they put out the first image of Matt Damon earlier in the year with like the more classic armor. If you go down, I think there's a picture. Remember the very first official photo we got of Matt Damon, not from the poster. If you keep scrolling down, it had a different that one right there. Historians were saying this doesn't look accurate to the era, the Bronze Age.
Almost like it's a fictional story or something, you fucks. But like that's
well, but fair. But it seems like if you go back up to the poster now, in the poster you see like and then this is what we see more of in the trailer today. You see like that what looks like a human spine and stuff, and just the helmet design and everything it's not quite accurate exactly to what some archaeologists think people back in the Greek army back then had for armor, but it is a lot closer. Do you think this was a direct response in terms of marketing from Nolan and his team and the Universal marketing team to all that criticism, which, like you said, shouldn't really matter, but like clearly people were up in arms to a certain degree about it. What do you think? Was this a direct response to that?
I don't think so, because it's like it just seems very like, I don't know. Like the spine looks good in the trailer. Like it looks fine. It just on the poster it looked mad weird. But like if you really look at what people actually wore at the time, it's not even close. So we actually did like this one and then historically accurate, and it's not even close to the same. But it's like with the Odyssey, it's a story. It's not real. It's based in myth. There's like the only thing that was real was the war, but like the Odysseus and all that, that's not real. So it's just like, I don't know. I just think it's people are getting up and like, if I get people getting up in arms over Napoleon, over the historical inaccuracies in that, and even then those were still a little bit exaggerated. Like that makes sense. That's supposed to be like a bio, like supposed to be a movie about like a real life figure and what he really was doing. So with that makes sense. But this is a story. It's like getting mad at Percy Jackson and the Olympians for not being historically accurate with like the myths at the time. It's just like, I don't know. It seems a bit silly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, Monique. I think that's perfectly put. If it was historically accurate, no one would recognize it because of the Mandela effect. Yeah. Well, look, ultimately the trailer did its job. I think for both of us and a lot of you watching, it's increased our level of excitement, and it's pretty much everything Nolan has been promising us, and maybe then some. So hopefully we'll get an amazing $1 billion movie, because remember, the Christopher Nolan hasn't hit $1 billion mark with his movies since the Dark Knight trilogy ended, and Oppenheimer got the closest at almost $1 billion. I think Interstellar also was pretty close, but yeah, I think the Odyssey has the most potential of any movie since the Dark Knight era to make it $1 billion. And yeah, it's going to have that IMAX exclusivity in the middle of the summer months. That's going to be a big deal. And hopefully that will give it the legs that it needs to make that $1 billion. But in the meantime, guys, we're going to move on to the MCU Weekly part of the show. And we've got a couple more trailer leaks to talk about, because unlike Universal Studios, Disney and Marvel doesn't seem to be learning their lesson. And especially Sony doesn't seem to be learning their lesson, because not only did the Brand New Day trailer for the fourth Spider-Man movie drop unofficially, leaking online, and then getting taken down last week, John, Now somebody actually put up a higher resolution version of it to the point where you can actually see the watermark with their name in it. I'm not gonna say the name out loud of the person who you can clearly tell has their watermark in their trailer. I don't think they're ever gonna get access to one of these early trailers ever again, because Sony's probably going after them and the NDA that they signed. But John, you watched this trailer now that you have seen, because we before had the audio descriptions and everything. Now you have the actual trailer. I think I sent you the file for this.
Yeah,
We're
I
not
did.
going to show it on screen. Your thoughts on the movie, because you clearly get to see Punisher at the end. You get to see some of the other villains. You get to see Spider-Man actually swinging around in that more classic and Manhattan kind of a look. And also, you've seen the visuals now of, is that coming out of you? Like, we're getting a more organic Spidey sense, and web literally coming out of Tom Holland's arms the way it did out of Tobey Maguire. And while this trailer definitely doesn't give away who Sadie Sink is playing, do you think you have a better idea of what character she is playing?
Not Jean Grey. She sounds like a villain. Why the fuck would they make Jean Grey sound that villainous? But like, Jesus Christ, no way, no, definitely not Jean Grey.
We do get a shot from that.
The rumor is that she's like a character named Shothra, but
Mhm.
like, why the fuck would like Jean Grey sound so villainous? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, Sony does get hacked. I mean, look at the whole thing with like when the interview was coming out, and then they're
Remember
like,
Amy Pascal? That's how she got in trouble and lost her job as like the chief
yeah,
Marvel
we were all
person.
thankful for that. But it's it
It does
don't
hurt
know.
the hype for the movies a little bit for me.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's why I think it's
Yeah.
intentional. Like, because the thing is, they know that like, ooh,
Like, any
leaks are gonna,
publicity
like, ooh,
is-
look, it's leaks. Look, it's leaks. Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. And then like, it builds the hype, and then when you finally see the trailer in all its glory, then it's like, oh, fuck, yes, let's go. And that's what I think. I think it's intentional.
Yeah, and by the way, this trailer, it looks like the plan is Anaconda is a Sony movie, comes out Christmas week this week. So the plan is to have it be playing ahead of that. So we'll get to see, hopefully, if you go watch Anaconda, maybe that's your reason to go watch Anaconda, then that might give you an opportunity to see this in proper high definition, not from, shot from somebody's camera. I personally think this trailer is being leaked is just a bad move, because if it was done on purpose, it doesn't look like it's done on purpose. It's just a bad move from the marketing team, giving people early access, thinking
Again,
that
that's
somebody
just
was not
my
gonna
theory.
risk
I'm
their
sure it's
access.
wrong, but
So, but overall, I'm excited to see where the take that more organic Spidey sense, and like just all the Spidey webs coming out of his arms instead of web shooters, and
I love
I'm
how
sure he's
they
gonna get
take the most
multiple
surface
suits.
level thing from the
It's
Toby movies, and it's like, see, we're doing something from the Toby movies. Aren't you excited? It's like, no, the reason we like the Toby movies is because they were fucking well written, and they were like by a real filmmaker and not whoever the fuck you're grabbing off the street. So
Yeah.
like, that's why they like those movies, not because he had organic webbing. Like, that's just the vibe I'm getting from that. But outside of that, I'm pretty
No, but I
excited
think
for it.
this is based more on the comics, right? Because isn't there a comic run of Spider-Man where
Yeah,
you
and
get
it was
to
controversial and stupid,
Yeah.
and the only reason it happened was because of the Tobey Maguire movies that were happening at this point. Because they did the dumb. So the whole thing was like, I forget who it was. I think it was like this. It might have been this character named Shathra. It might have been somebody else. But like, she like impregnates Spidey like alien style, and then she like changes him into like man Spider, and like he starts like getting like eyes. He's like his arms are turning into spider legs and all this shit. And then he becomes an actual spider, and then he gives birth to himself, and he's fully human again, and he defeats Shathra or whatever, or whatever character it was, and then he finds out he has organic webbing, and he's like, that's new. And this was all done after the Toby movie so that the comics could be more like what the movies were doing at the time. They retconned it. I don't know when they retconned it, but
That's one really, really roundabout way to get your character to match the movies. But anyway.
They couldn't have just been like, oh yeah, he like went into a chamber radiation chamber and it evolved the spider bite
Mm-hmm.
qualities, and boom, there you go. He got organic
Easy.
webbing. It just,
Yep.
it's so stupid.
Some people probably appreciated all the effort they put into making that change. Who knows? But hey, you know what? Caleb was saying that the leaks for Avengers Doomsday are worse. Well, while Sony, of course, is marketing Spider-Man Brand New Day because it's Sony, distributes the movies. Marvel Studios make them, but Sony is the one that basically owns the movies and
Queen
distributes
was the
them.
character, right? That was
Yeah.
the name of the character, the Queen.
With Avengers Doomsday, it's obvious that's a Marvel Studios film through and through, so Disney Marvel Studios are making and distributing it. And you're right, the leaks for that are worse because today we got the runtimes for the second and third trailer for Avengers Doomsday, John. So if you scroll down here, because we also now have a slight description for what the Doctor Doom teaser will be like, potentially featuring some scary scenes, maybe giving us more of that body horror or like that classic Universal monster movie effect. Hey, Sergeant Giratina, how are you doing? Evening. If you are watching live, everybody, hit the like button. If you're not watching live, if you're watching after we're live, still hit the like button. We appreciate all the support. But hey, the second teaser will run 1 minute 39 seconds, and we'll talk about that in more detail because it did leak, so that's been pretty much confirmed at this point. And the third one is set to run a mere 1 minute and 9 seconds, and that's meant to feature a lot of scary moments. Now, the second teaser we now know features a certain God of Thunder. So the third one people were initially thinking might be Loki, but if it features scary moments, people are now speculating, some insiders are saying it might actually be a Doctor Doom teaser. And so maybe that means the fourth one might end up being the proper like teaser trailer. Or maybe then Loki is the one that comes in with the fourth teaser. So, John, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, obviously, I think the runtime for the Thor one we know because we'll talk about it in more detail later. But 1 minute 9 seconds, scary moments. Your thoughts on this? This is coming, from sources that are close to the Swedish Film Rating Board, and that's how we got the runtimes because they had to rate these trailers. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, sure. I mean, I guess. I mean, it's entirely possible. Like, everything was just rumors and leaks and all that stuff. So it's entirely possible that the Loki shit was BS. So it seems since they are going for more of the Universal monster vibes, that the scary scenes are, there. But obviously, we'll just have to wait and see. And with that, I could see that what they're trying to do here. They're trying to make it seem more unique than it is. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, we'll see, but let's talk about the Thor one right now because that actually leaked in pretty good quality, clearly shot with a camera. But John, the second trailer footage leaked. I think that's at this point a lot of the versions have been taken down, but you might be able to find one online. I managed to save the one that I found earlier, but the second teaser that leaked looks like from the same French theater that this first one got leaked because you see that the titles at the end are in French. Is about Thor. I should probably put up the spoiler alert here if you're tuning in now. But John, let's talk about it for a moment. We will. Earl Patterson. Any news about He-Man? Listening from England. We don't actually have any news for He-Man on today's show, but we will keep an eye out. The movie's still set to come out next year, and last we heard, it was in post-production, and the actors were talking the movie up. So we'll wait to see when we get a poster and a teaser trailer. But yeah, John, as far as this teaser goes, if you've seen it, it looks like silly Thor is gone. In fact, he is praying to Odin, his late father, in fact, and wanting to hopefully save the life of his adopted daughter, Love, who it looks like she's not doing particularly well. You get to see some footage of her like in bed and maybe sick or dying potentially for some reason. I'm just speculating, where that might be going in terms of the storyline. There is the theme, of course, of you look at the first teaser with Steve Rogers and his son, and now you look at Thor and his daughter, even if it's adoptive daughter, but his daughter nonetheless. And he's got the short hair. He's looking pretty distressed. It seems like the whole father dynamic is going to be a significant theme. You and who you are and how that connects to your love for your kid or your kids seems to be a theme. You've got Thor and his daughter. Steve Rogers and his son. Of course, there's a rumor of Doctor Doom and is going to have a kid that he potentially could have lost in an incursion. And you can imagine Franklin and of course Reed Richards, father and son. John, your thoughts on this teaser trailer and how all these themes potentially tied together, and then also your thoughts on seeing this version of Thor, because I know you're not the biggest fan of the last two versions of Thor, but this particular Thor looks a bit older. He looks more jaded. He looks like the kind of defeated Thor that we got in Avengers Infinity War before, or actually at the beginning of Endgame even, when he's sort of just given up on life. Not saying that's the version we're getting, but you certainly don't see like the Thor that is flirting with his hammer and his other hammer.
Essentially just just trying to just bring back, like, that's the, like, I'm not gonna see Doomsday, but I hope the one thing that they do is just rectify every mistake that fucking Kaka Waititi's did to this fucking character, and just completely and utterly obliterating every goodwill that this character had, and give him fucking something. And I hope that we do get there. Like, I hope that we do in fact get there, because this would just be, Thor deserves it at this point, and I hope that we're gonna get the proper Thor, because that's what looked like we were gonna get in in Thor 4 more Thor. And
also known as Love and Thunder.
Points if you get the reference. Also known as Shit and Blunder. That's what I call it. But it just because that's like the vibe we were going with at the end of Endgame. Say what you will about the Russos, they seem to have gotten Thor, at least in Infinity War, in some aspects in Endgame. I didn't love him. Like, I didn't love Fat Thor in Endgame, but I will say I like, the whole thing of like him like having the hammer and him being like, I'm still worthy. That was a very good scene. Even I have to admit that. So proper Thor, proper Hulk. Just, the reboot can't come soon enough. So,
Yeah. No, there's no time for jokes. Yeah, Caleb. I do like that we're getting a darker. I enjoyed Thor being, a little bit, just this sense of humor and leading into Chris Hemsworth's like, comedic timing in Thor Ragnarok, but clearly they went really over the top in Love and Thunder. So I'm glad that they're sort of like pulling back and going in a different direction here. Beta Ray Bill. I don't know if we're ever going to get Beta Ray Bill, but I'm sure Kevin Feige knows about the character and might want to bring him in eventually down the road. By the way, speaking of needing a proper Thor and proper Hulk that Ron was mentioning, John, I don't remember seeing or hearing from Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner or Professor Hulk or Hulk and of any kind in the leaked Spider-Man trailer. And that was one of the things people were talking about. Do you remember when you watched it earlier today, did you see or hear the Hulk or like Mark Ruffalo's voice?
I didn't see him. So they might have gotten rid of those if they were in that leaked trailer to like change some things. But the vibe I'm getting is like, oh, he's gonna, get this. He's gonna have like something's gonna happen to him where he gets like this, something like the organic webbing, and he's in the cocoon and all that. He's like, what's happening to me? And he goes to Bruce Banner. He can't go to, Reed Richards just yet because that's not a thing yet. So I think what was described in one of the leaks was like, oh, he's going to Bruce Banner, but he specifically says, they specifically say Professor Banner.
So he's like teaching at the college.
Again, the quality was still not great.
Yeah.
I didn't see him. Maybe I'll have to watch it again. But like the vibe I'm getting is like, I don't know if they're like, they might be rescinding the whole Professor Hulk thing, because it's just like, that's the vibe I'm getting.
I think that was done in even She-Hulk, right? Because you got to see Mark Ruffalo as in like human form.
Well, that was a flashback.
Was it a flash?
Yeah,
Really?
that's when she got her powers, and that was like apparently years
Oh.
ago, and
But what
then they
about the
flash
Shang-Chi
forward.
post-credit sequence? Because in Shang-Chi's post-credit sequence, he was human form Bruce Banner
Well,
too.
I mean, the latest that we've seen of him was She-Hulk, where it's like, here's my son, and he's still Hulk.
Right.
So, he's still Professor Hulk. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
The
It
from
seems like
reading all
they're
the
gonna try
yeah,
and backtrack the whole
I'm
Professor
okay
Hulk
with
thing,
that.
which
I'm
is
okay
like
with
I
that.
I understand it was done in the comic. Oh, it was done sometimes once in a blue moon. The comics don't do certain things in the comics, like the whole Professor thing. And plus, remember, he didn't go like, "Hey, hey, hey, kids, dab." He didn't do that in the comics either. So like, shut the fuck up. Um, but I think they're just kind of backtracking that, and then he's just human again. It's fine. Just put that fucking Professor Hulk thing under the rug, and maybe he cured his. He's like, I'm sick of being giant and green. All right, I'm gonna just be human again, and somehow it
I'm okay with
removed.
that.
I don't know. Whatever they
It's
decide to
it's
do,
also
I hope
I,
it's good.
yeah, and it's also I think I like the idea of seeing like this call it coincidence or like I mean in the world of the MC maybe it's meant to be a coincidence. For us we know the connection, but like it seems like Peter Parker either seeks out Professor Banner, who's now teaching at a university, or he is one of his students, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. There might be like, oh my god, my professor was at the Hulk, like it's like you just figure that out eventually. That would be a cool moment if that happens in the movie. uh but nonetheless, John, speaking of Shang-Chi, I mentioned the post-credit sequence that featured Bruce Banner. Simu Liu was recently talking about how he hasn't really gotten the same kind of leading man roles from his time playing Shang-Chi, much like a lot of the other MCU actors like Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth, specifically were two examples pointed out. Like they obviously, especially Chris Pratt has become like an absolute A-lister of a star. And this is see, I mean, he wasn't going all like Zachary Levi about it. He's pretty humble still. And this is in relation to Simu Liu. Just I think there's a new TV show he's got coming out on Peacock.
The
The
Copenhagen Project.
Yeah, which by the way looks a little goofy, but I like the concept. The trailer doesn't convince me, but he's the lead of that show, and he was just talking about like he just didn't see many of those kind of opportunities coming his way after Shang-Chi, came out and did really well considering that it came out during the pandemic era. It was one of the highest grossing superhero movies of that time, if not, I think if not the highest grossing of that time. And Bob Chapek at the time was talking about how it was an experiment, and basically, Simu was saying like, look, if I was a white male like dude, like I might be getting different offers, but some directors will just never hire me for the lead roles. I just have been getting a lot of supporting roles and just other ensemble cast roles, just not many leading man roles in Hollywood. I mean, obviously he was in Barbie, he's done a few other things, but you could tell like he's not quite ascended to being a red hot star the way even somebody like Glenn Powell has from Top Gun Maverick, or obviously like all the MCU actors like you got Chris Pratt and such. Your thoughts on what he was saying here, and do you feel like Simu Liu should have gotten more opportunities from Shang-Chi?
I don't know. He just um
Hmm.
I think I think he's just like from what I've seen. Again, I can't judge the movie, but like from all the stuff I've seen from him, like clips of stuff, he just seems kind of a bland actor. Like he's just kind of one note. He's not terribly interesting, and I think that's kind of why he like at least Chris Pratt. Say what you will about him, private life or whatever. He actually is like giving a performance. Like maybe it's a good performance, maybe it's a bad performance. I don't know, but he at least has some kind of range. Like you look at like the two movies that are coming out next year for Chris Pratt, Mercy and the Super Mario Galaxy movie, two very different movies, two very different performances. So, he's actually like giving something like in his performances. And Simu, he just seems kind of one note to me. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe because I haven't seen the context, I haven't seen these entire movies or shows or anything, that it's not quite enough. But like the vibe I'm getting, he's just a bit of a one note actor, and hopefully that maybe he can get better in the future. I mean, there were a lot of actors that like eventually went on to prove that they could do more than what they were given, like Adam Sandler, for instance, that he continually proves he's not just like the Jack and Jill guy. He can actually, act under like proper direction. I've heard he's great in Jake Kelly. He was amazing in Uncut Gems, but he still has fun with like Happy Gilmore too. So he like kind of does a little bit of both. Um, so it could be an agent thing. He could just be really picky. I don't know. But like the vibe I get, he's just kind of one note. I will say, at least Henry Golding, from what little I've seen of him, he seems like a very charismatic dude. So maybe you can blame like race stuff with that, because Henry Golding seems to be like kind of putting in the work a little bit. Like even like performances from him, he seems to be very interesting and charismatic. It's just like, I think that's just a bad case of like he's picking the wrong projects. Snake Eyes. And so, it's just I think I think that's a case of like bad dealings, and I think this is just a case of like people just see he's not the best actor, so they don't give him the proper roles. And sometimes you're just not destined to be a leading man. Like that's just like how, I don't know why I sounded like Mark Wahlberg there. It's not destined. You're not destined to be a leading man, guy. Anyway, but yeah, I think we found a transform. I think we found a Shang-Chi. Anyway, sometimes it's just like I want to be a leader. Sometimes you're not destined to be a leading man. Even I remember there was a story Billy Bob Thornton was on in an interview where he's like, where somebody told him, he's like, you're too ugly to be a leading man, but you're too noteworthy to be a character actor. And he's like, okay. And so he went on to write his own movie and starred in it and did it, and he put in the work, and he's like, you know what, now he's a name. So it's just like sometimes maybe the work, maybe hone your craft, I don't know, but obviously we'll see. But sometimes maybe you don't have to be a leading man and to be successful. I think that's just the main takeaway at the end of all of this is you don't have to be a leading man to be a.
I will say, okay,
make a
that's
stand.
fair, and that could completely be valid. But I don't know if you can put up the article I just sent you a link for, John. I just wanted to make a quick point because I do believe that there is a large. Simu Liu has been a little outspoken about this, but I do think he has a valid point in that we still see just this incredible lack of parity when it comes to representation in terms of the stories that are being told and the people behind the camera and in front of the camera telling those stories. And it seems like we might be going in the wrong direction with with diversity, especially under the current political climate, obviously. But if you scroll down in this article, this report is from last week. This was originally from the Hollywood Reporter, I believe. And if you just zoom in a little bit on the second paragraph, I just wanted to kind of quickly point out something that I think Simu Liu may or may not have been directly referencing, but it shows here that both behind and in front of the camera, the report showed that diversity has continued to slip across television. Now, of course, Simu Liu is just about to lead his first TV show on Peacock, so and he's an Asian actor. Where here they're talking about 4 out of 5 leads in the most watched streaming comedies and dramas were white actors, and white men accounting for close to 79% of all show creators, an increase from last year's 77%. In contrast, nearly all other races and ethnicities were underrepresented as leads in top shows and as show creators. Only 49 of the 222 scripted series studied within the report were created by a female. White creators of color only accounted for 8% of show creators. And that to me is, I think, a systemic issue that Simu Liu has been outspoken about, and he can't solve all on his own. And your point is still valid, because I do think look, not everybody is made to be the lead.
It's like totally like,
but yeah,
outside of that, but I do think that there is some type of combativeness. Maybe it has to do with like a bit of a political side, possibly, but I think there is certainly, I'm not gonna like say that that's definitely not something to talk about. I just think like I'm not gonna do like, I hate to sound stereotypical, like pull up fucking by your bootstraps and fucking, it just like, unfortunately, because of what your ethnicity is, now you fucking just have to work even. Oh, I got Marvel, this will be easy. No, unfortunately, that isn't the case anymore. Oh, I get handed this big franchise, that means I'm gonna be, no, you still gotta fucking work even harder. And I'm not saying that that's oh, pull yourself by your bootstraps. You could. It's. I'm not saying like that. That's the fucking hand you were given, and it sucks. Obviously, I mean, I can't fucking say anything. You have more to say about this than I do, as someone who is
Yeah.
of a
But I'm
minority
like,
in America. But you
like the
know,
point, like, but shouldn't it be like an equal,
it should be. I'm not saying
access to the opportunity?
It's a good thing that that's the case, but unfortunately, you just have to deal with the hand you're dealt nowadays, and still have to work like extremely hard, even getting this big franchise. So, and that's the sucky thing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, yeah, I agree with the principle of what you're saying, in the sense that in an ideal world, the opportunities would be equal. They're not. And I think Monique, is putting it in the best way possible to kind of summarize this. Is the playing field fair? No. Is that the whole problem for Simu Liu specifically? A piece of it, but not the whole. And I think that's a good way to kind of wrap up this part of the story. As a system, I think Hollywood needs to improve in representation. I think just generally across the US and, other parts of the world, that could be improved, but certainly in Hollywood. So, and we'll talk. Actually, you know what? We'll talk about, as far as actors making living age. There's a quick
Most of them
on.
don't, but people unfortunately just see the big name stars of, like, your Chris Pratts, your RDJs, your the Marvel people, the Jurassic Park people, this people, that people. Oh, you just see the prettiest faces with the biggest blockbusters, with the biggest paychecks. That's the 1% of the 1%. Those are the people making all the money. Yet you have, like with most things, you have all the people not making, like it's the same thing for, look at chefs. You know who Gordon Ramsay is, but then there's a trillion other chefs that are barely scraping by in all these restaurants that are failing because of insert various things here. But they're barely scraping by. They're barely making money. Yet, oh, I know who Gordon Ramsay is. That means, that all chefs are making that kind of money, when that's not the case. Or like Wolfgang Puck or whatever. So that's just not the case with everybody. Like every job, there are 99% of actors are, some are a little bit better off than others, but still they're making the bargain crap wages that they have to survive by. And it's just, it's but the unfortunate part is, unlike chefs or surgeons or other things, we see these people day and day and day again on TV show. Like literally, it's the thing we consume the most. Entertainment. We consume entertainment because that's the thing we consume. Like not just books, but like, we see TV shows, movies, games, we see all this shit, and we're like, oh, obviously they're getting paid trillions of fucking dollars to be in this thing. It's like, no, that's not the case. That's almost never the case. Take a character actor, take this at, like, fucking Brady Corbett was saying when he was nominated for fucking The Brutalist. This man was nominated for Oscars. He himself was nominated, just not his movie. He was nominated. I think he might have been nominated for I think he wrote it, and I think he was nominated for writing. But he's like, I fucking live in squalor. I live in we share apartments with people, and I'm making like this big movie that's fucking getting nominated, and I can barely scrape by with rent. That's just the reality for these people. But the thing is, we see them, so we automatically assume they're getting paid. Like Joe Schmo, who was in 3 episodes of Community, is obviously getting the same pay as fucking Chris Pratt doing fucking Jurassic Park 17. So that's just what we assume, when that's just never the case. So there's also that aspect as well. Anyway, rant over. Let's,
I think also, like, Ron made a good point, just to kind of, there's a lot of nuances to the Simu Liu's particular career. I think
we could talk about this for fucking hours.
Yeah, Shang-Chi being as good of a movie as it was, and as much money as it made, it was coming out at a time when the MCU just was not doing as well as it. I mean, even now the MCU is sort of in still a bit of a downturn, but more maybe recovery mode, depending on how well the coming movies do for the Doomsday, Secret Wars, and Spider-Man Brand New Day. But yeah, hopefully Simu Liu can pick up more roles, and you got to make the next one count. So hopefully his upcoming show on Peacock will do good, and he'll do a good job with it, and then that will lead to bigger opportunities for him. But with that, John, we got a few more things to get into here, so I'm gonna dive into the next one here. apparently, I don't know if you guys saw this, but we recently were getting some insights from the Avengers movie that would have been, as if you want to call it that, Avengers Kang Dynasty. And we got some new insights into what that movie was going to feature. And I want to talk about this real quick. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I think this is interesting because obviously the version we're getting is going to have Doctor Doom in it, Doomsday, and we're going in a different direction now. But Avengers Kang Dynasty was set to feature multiple Spider-Men, including Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, as like anchor beings, and Tom Holland would have been the anchor being for the 616 or 616. That's like the mainline MCU, the Sacred Timeline, and then we would have had Ghost Rider, Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider, and it would have featured Kang's Battle World. And essentially, the story would have been that you would have seen all of these Spider-Men, the Sony Spider-Man, actors coming together with, of course, you have the Ghost Rider, and you add into that mix, of course, Kang, all the variants of Kang, and these characters who all were around before the MCU even existed. And so it kind of sidelines the mainline MCU characters per se, in favor of these other actors, and as well as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine coming in, and they would have had to fight the Council of Kangs because the TVA would have gathered them together and maybe like made this team of anchor beings. And then ultimately the plan was for them to just fail, and that would lead to the collapse of the multiverse, and then the Kang would create Battle World, and then that's where in Secret Wars you get everybody else, including all the main MCU characters coming in, which sounds interesting. I mean, this is coming from My Time to Shine, but it's a very different way to get to Secret Wars, although some similarities, but also a lot of differences in terms of how you get to Secret Wars. So that's something which I found interesting, because you look at it now with Doomsday, they're doing. I mean, they're ultimately. It looks like they're ultimately gonna get to Secret Wars with Battle World anyway. Except it's not gonna be with Kang, but with Doom, because clearly, they've done away with the Kang character. But the fact that they were gonna feature all these Spider-Men and Ghost Rider and Wolverine, I mean, that sounds pretty epic to me. But the idea of anchor beings, it seems like, is no longer going to be as much of a thing anymore, because they're going in a different direction and bringing back Steve Rogers and obviously RDJ as Doctor Doom. Just some geeky guys saying Secret Wars better have Toby and Hugh team up. That would be amazing. And that would definitely pay off a nice little Easter egg for those of us who have been watching and following Marvel for years and years and years. Hello, Jose. How are you doing? CC Black saying, I still think Nicolas Cage will feature as Ghost Rider in Doomsday.
I also love. I'm just gonna say
nice.
this. I don't know if you talked about this yet.
Yeah.
But I just love how what they were planning to do with Kang Dynasty was literally ripping off Doctor Doom's arc in fucking Secret Wars anyway. And now they're just like, oh, now we're just doing it with the correct character. Okay, like you were gonna rip off Doom. Jonathan Majors punched his girlfriend. He's out. And then they're like, okay, now cool. We can do it with this character and paying fucking RDJ $100 million. So it's like, all right, okay. Like, why not actually do Kang Dynasty? There is literally the thing you're taking the title from. Why not do that? It's like, no, we ripped it off. Now we're doing it with the actual character. You're fucking stupid. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, look, all I'll say is that made me a lot more interested in seeing the Kang Dynasty movie. I know we're never gonna get it, but if we ever did, it sounds more interesting, because I would have loved to see those characters team up. I do think it's somewhat flawed in the sense that why would you lean into all these older characters and actors? Because if you think this is a nostalgia play with Doomsday bringing back Steve Rogers, that would have been an even bigger nostalgia play if your main team was those, actors playing those characters. Because then a lot of your younger audiences, I mean, yes, a lot of younger audiences are generally aware that these actors have played these roles, but you're still, asking a lot of young folks who love the MCU, who may not have seen all the previous era of Marvel movies, to kind of just lean into it and be like, oh, this is amazing, this is the best thing ever. So yeah, I don't know if that was a completely sound plan. I personally prefer Doctor Doom instead, what they're doing with it, if this is indeed what the Kang Dynasty would have been, like you're saying, Ron. it makes sense. Again, it's a bit of a rumor. My time to shine. I don't know how much I believe this
Yeah, I
to
don't
be
know
true.
how much we.
So
It just seems very
yeah.
dumb, and why I don't think this is true is because why would
Hmm.
why would you like set something up for Secret Wars when that version of the character is why not just do Doom to begin with? Like you were already getting Fantastic Four, you already had them when you were planning this. So like why not just do that? Like why not just do Doctor Doom? Why take the thing from Kang Dynasty? Why not take this title but like don't do anything with it and then do like I don't know, this just doesn't make sense to me to the point like it's a stupid move, which I can definitely believe Marvel to do, but like at the same time, it just seems too stupid that it just like it makes no sense. So
Yeah. Look, I don't know if I believe Kevin Feige 100% that Doctor Doom was always the plan, that you randomly just drop him in for Secret Wars, but okay, fair enough. Thank you again for the super chats. Just some geeky guys saying post Secret Wars MCU needs to recapture the 2000s Marvel feel since they have all their characters and focus on quality over quantity. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree with you. They should do that, except the 2000s Marvel was even more inconsistent than the MCU Marvel has been recently. So I
yeah,
would
you get the
prefer,
Fox X-Men movies, but then at the same time you get like,
yeah,
like fucking Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, or like
I would
Alien.
prefer the,
Oh,
yeah, like quality over quantity. I would prefer more consistency. I think that's what everybody would prefer. Okay, I agree with John saying Justin Geeky Guy. If they were gonna adapt Secret Wars, they should have planned to have Doom as the villain from the beginning. It's like adapting the Infinity Gauntlet, but with Loki instead. Fair enough.
yeah.
Good question in the chat though. Let me see if I can pull this up. CC Black was asking how many phases what do we get in the Mutant Saga? John, that's a good question because the Multiverse Saga ended up being what, 3 phases, and that's pretty much the same as the
Multiverse
Infinity
Saga,
Saga.
quote unquote.
Yeah, the Multiverse Saga. So, do you think the Mutant Saga will also feature a similar 3 phases, or because also the 3 phases for the Multiverse Saga were a lot more condensed and had a lot more projects, and therefore maybe the dip in quality we've talked about. Do you think
I
with the Mutant Saga they'll spread them out more, like the
what
Infinity
I
Saga?
think it should be one of two things. It should either be okay, so how many for each phase at this point? There were like 4 or 5, right? Not
No,
many.
there were 3 phases
Like
for
if we're just
Infinity.
counting movies, like ignore the
No,
TV shows for a second.
oh, you mean the total movies? Oh, in which phase? Like all phases of the Multiverse Saga?
All like the average of each. I don't
I think on
remember.
average it's like 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Okay. So what
Yeah,
I
roughly.
think
Yeah.
at most, and I fucking think, Gunn should also do this for DC instead of like, oh, we're doing like 2 movies, 2 of this, 2 of that. It's like, bro, that's too fucking
So
much.
there were
Anyway,
actually 7 movies in Phase 4.
okay.
And then I think Phase 5 was the shortest because Phase 5
Because
had,
they had to change course.
yeah. Well,
So what
Phase 5
I
actually has 6 movies. So there you go. Okay,
depending
so
on
let's say
how
maybe
long you
yeah,
it's okay,
6.
it's a whole thing. So anyway, what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is you should do one of two things.
Hmm.
Either have like 1, maybe 2 movies a year and have it be relatively maybe let's just give you like have 1 to 2 movies a year,
Thanks,
maybe
Ron.
have like a couple of years, maybe like let's say 4 or 5 years for each phase. Have it be one phase, build it up, have a big bad at the end of that phase, and then you move on. Like that's the mutant phase, okay? And then the next phase, do that and have it be like a big bad at the end of every phase instead of trying to recreate the first 3 phases with Thanos, all that shit. Well, I think it should be one phase, then a big villain, and then you move on, and then have it be more consistent. Or you can do like the 3 phase thing, just like have it be like 1 movie a year at most. Like maybe you could do like 2 movies a year with like what I said before, but like I would say, and then have it be like I don't know, like have like have each phase be like 2 years or something. Like either you have it long but like short, or short but long. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I would say have it be one per villain, one phase per villain. Don't have the fucking mutant saga be like 3 phases of one villain. I think it should be like, okay, if you want to pay attention to mutants, fine, cool. You'll focus on, okay, this version is Magneto, this big villain's Magneto, this big villain is Apocalypse, this villain is Sinister, and it's one per phase. Something like that, instead of the big buildup, because I don't think the big buildup will work again. You tried to do that again and it failed. So I would say just do one big villain per phase. Phase it would be 7. Phase 7 is one villain. Phase 8 is one villain. Phase 9 one is instead of 7, 8, 9. That's one big villain. I just don't think that would work in the long run. Got to change it up, because clearly Marvel is not doing as well as they should be, and it's not doing great. So that's just what I think.
Yeah, well, the most movies they've had in a single phase so far was Phase 3, which had 11 movies. Phase 1 and 2 had 6 apiece, and then since then it's been a little up and down. You had 6 in Phase 4, I believe, 7 in Phase 5, and now like 4 by the time we finish Secret Wars in Phase 6. I, I think you have a good strategy there that you're putting out there. Here's what I think in terms of quality versus quantity. Uh, I think as far as doing a good job at quality and quantity, they should have no more than 2 movies a year, and they should make these things last. Like these phases shouldn't be like Phase 4 was like 2 years, and it had the most projects of any phase ever if you include all the TV shows. Hi, Vera the Cape, by the way. Um, So who's the big hero story will follow Spider-Man, X-Men, Black Panther? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, look, I think as far as the characters you feature, you want to feature the X-Men. I don't think you can give every X-Men character their own movie. Certainly, I mean, that's probably an obvious statement, but like you also can't. I don't think you want to necessarily like give Storm her own movie or give Cyclops their own movie. Some of those characters work best in a team environment. Wolverine obviously could get his own movie, so that's definitely possible. You could give the X-Men team a trilogy of movies. I think that's the most obvious thing you could do. Like you said though, having each phase sort of have their own overarching story would make for that, I think, happy middle ground where it's episodic enough and yet it feels like you're paying off everything without holding people over for a good like 3 phases worth of stuff. Because the good thing about, and at the same time, the biggest thing they need to do, Storm can't, but like even with the Wakanda, it's not her own movie. It's like if they want to do a Storm and Black Panther crossover, that's still a crossover. But it's what I like the best about like what the early MCU was. Movies could stand on their own for the most part. Like you could watch Iron Man 2 and not care about the rest of the MCU and still enjoy the connections that they try to make and still be okay with it. Even the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, that movie pretty much stands on its own. Like it has connections to the Infinity Saga, obviously, but if you just watch that movie by itself, it works. I just don't think they've done a lot of that in recent times, and we need to get back to that kind of Marvel. That's what James Gunn is trying to do with the DCU. I think that's what Marvel needs to get back to doing more of. But we'll leave that there for now because I think this could be another conversation we could talk about for an hour in terms of the approach Marvel can take. We know what they're doing now with Phase 6, and hopefully that sets the stage for them to do a more of a clean transition, post Secret Wars, the kind of transition they failed to do after Endgame. And I think ultimately that's what a lot of us want to see. We want them to kind of like get back to making good movies that don't feel disjointed or overly connected, and we don't want to be overwhelmed by the amount of shows and movies to the point where we don't want to see every single one of them. And then we get to a point where like sometimes we need to do too much homework, or sometimes it just doesn't make sense why a character exists, or the MCU suddenly forgets a character ever existed. Like Shang-Chi's sequel has never been announced. The director's working on a Spider-Man movie, and Simulou's wondering if he's ever going to get called back for another Shang-Chi sequel, even though he is in the Avengers movies. Like we want to make sure that the audience can follow along and not feel overwhelmed, and you want to like pay off every setup that you put out there, and that feels like, like all those post-credit scenes need to matter again and make sense. They need to go somewhere, not tease random characters we never get to see again. But all of that said, John, we have one more story from the MCU weekly segment of the day. Can you walk us through what Spider-Man Spider-Verse writer, specifically Dan Slott, was talking about when it talked about how apparently he was barred from using a lot of those live action Sony Spider-Man iterations in the Spider-Verse storylines in the comics, which were then later on adapted into the Spider-Verse movies, and the reasoning behind it. What can you tell us about what Dan Slott was saying?
Well, he said writing comics with licensed property means you don't always get to do what you want. That's the trade-off for getting the opportunity to tell stories with the characters you love. Case in point, I couldn't use the Sony movie Spider-Man in my first Spider-Verse story or its follow-up, End of the Spider-Verse. However, we come with a workaround for one of them because we did get permission to use Spidey from the Web Slingers ride at Disney's Avengers campus, and technically he's a Tom Holland Spidey, but we did not have permission to take off his mask and show a face with Tom Holland's likeness. So in an early draft, I wrote a sequence where the Spider-Man would be saving people near the entrance of to the Holland tunnel, and you get a panel where you cut to a close-up of Spidey with the sign right behind him, but cropped so it read Holland T with Spider-Man's head blocking the letters in Uno. And Marvel editorial quickly let me know there was no way in hell I could do that ever. So yeah, Dan Slott couldn't ruin the Sony Spideys. So yeah, that's good. Because Dan Slott sucks. Fuck Dan Slott.
Cool. I mean, look, I get it. It's because Disney owns all the merchandising rights and Sony owns the movie rights. It's all this and especially this was before any Sony Marvel deal was in place, and even that deal is very specifically for the movies. So I totally get that they couldn't use all these variants, and then any hint that because if there was even that hint that it was Tom Holland Spider-Man that they were featuring in the comics, that would have led to like some sort of a issue where either Sony would be doing a cease and desist, or you would have to share the revenue or something, and then Disney and Marvel do not want any of that smoke because obviously they want to make the money and not get into any legal trouble. So, yeah. What stories did Dan Slott write, John? You want
to Bad Ones.
There you
That's
go.
all you need to know.
I think it's the Spider-Verse story that eventually got adapted.
He did he did Superior Spider-Man. Isn't
he also writing Superman?
He invented Screwball. I know that. No, that was Brian Michael Bendis. He did Superman.
Is he? But also, didn't Dan Slott help co-create Mr. Negative, which is one of the villains we are going to potentially see in Spider-Man?
Yes, I think so. So broken clock, right? But I mean, he's not Tom King levels, but he's still him. Dan Slott, Brian Michael Bendis, Tom King, Zeb Wells. I would say Zeb Wells is probably the least terrible out of all of those. I mean, his Spidey run was not good, but I don't think that was his fault. So, although I did hear his run on Batman was also pretty bad, but I think that might have been Chip Zdarsky. Chip Zdarsky is actually a pretty good writer. But yeah, again, his Gotham War with Catwoman was very stupid. I forget if that was Zeb Wells or it might have been Chip Zdarsky, but that's beside the point. Tom King is the worst out of all of them. That's all. That's what we care about. But Dan Slott isn't that great either. And yeah, that's
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up MCU Weekly for now. Of course, we'll bring you more from the Marvel side of things tomorrow on the show. But now we move on to the quicker part of the news before we get to all the DC news. So let's get into the quickest, John. Why don't you walk us through all the quickies, as Caleb likes to call them?
Stranger Things 5 Part 2 episode runtimes revealed. So apparently episode 5, episode 6, and episode 7, Shock Jock, Escape from Camazotz, and The Bridge are 1 hour 8, 1 hour 15, and 1 hour 6 minutes. Obviously, the last episode will be, on New Year's Eve day. I forget which one, but that's where and that's going to be like 2 hours long or something like that. So, yeah, or at least that's the rumor. It's going to be like two-ish hours long. So yeah, if you're actually still excited for Stranger Things, then by all means get pumped or not. I don't really care. Next up, we still have Stranger Things news, but Stranger Things shatters Nielsen record. It already held as season 5 premiere ushers in highest weekly viewing total ever for a streaming title. So very exciting for them. The heat is still coming for Stranger Things, I guess. People still like this. Sure. I'm gonna just wait until the entire thing is like finished so I could just binge all of it. Because the thing is, the fucking part 2 is coming in like 3 days anyway, so it's like, all right, might as well just wait another week for the fucking last episode. So, and I don't really care about spoilers, so it's fine, whatever. But yeah, congrats to them. Whatever. Studios, Hollywood's big new labor deal studios to offer guilds health plans $100 million lifeline in exchange for longer multi-year contracts in 2026. So I assume Dan wanted to talk about this, but he's not here right now. So good for them. I think I think this is, the longer multi-year contracts might be a little dodgy, but if we're getting more stuff, and this is, I think, good. I think this is good.
Okay, so okay, let me kind of set the stage for this real quick. The labor strikes that happened a couple of years ago, the deal that they signed at the time with SAG-AFTRA was only for a couple of years. So essentially what was meant to happen is they're going to be renegotiating a new deal next year in 2026. So the SAG-AFTRA as well as WGA and DGA are all coming up with with the new deals that will need to be negotiated, and the studios have come up with basically a number they want to offer to help boost the health plans, the health and retirement plans for all of the different unions. Why? Because they're they know those plans are running like really low on their balance, like basically they're running in the negative, so they want to like shore them up. But they're saying we're going to give you that money and basically help you guys like shore up all these retirement benefits for your union members, actors, writers, directors. The directors are in the best position. Like they've got plenty of money, but the writers and the actors unions, the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA are, theirs are in pretty bad shape. So they're saying we're going to like offer you this. We're going to give you more money for that in exchange for lengthening the how long the next contract is going to be. Usually these deals are for 3 years at a time, and then you renegotiate, right? If you're a sports fan, is like the collective bargaining agreement is that, except every union does this. So basically the Association of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the AMPTP you see there, which is the union that's basically the studios like Netflix and Warner Brothers and stuff, and Disney and whatnot, and then the SAG-AFTRA, and then you got the guilds. They're saying in exchange for us like helping you like shore up your all these health and retirement plans, you need to give us a longer deal. Basically, we need to lock in the terms for up to 5 years as opposed to 3 years, and that's their current like compromise they want to make. Which would mean that they can kind of like Hollywood moves a lot faster than than even the 3-year deals potentially do. So if you lock in terms for 5 years, the actors and the writers could potentially be getting jiffed for a number of years, while the studios as AI comes in to play and things change over time. So this is what they have on offer, and they've got leverage because they know that these plans for these unions, they're in big trouble. So they're like, we'll give you the money to help bring them into the black, but you need to give us a longer contract. That's what this is. And Ted Sarandos played a big role in ending the last set of strikes, even though Netflix was the biggest reason why the strikes happened anyway. And now that he's potentially buying Warner Brothers, he would have an even bigger influence. So, take that for what it is. Looks like Netflix is going to have a bigger influence on making sure people get paid even less and have less favorable deals at the writers and actors and directors, So yay! That's what this is all about. Cool.
Okay, so it's not good.
It's like it depends on how you look at it, but this is like I'm sure we're gonna get like more news about this next year. This is just the early preparation for negotiate. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get another strike.
This certainly puts the preparation in preparation H. Am I right? Because they're gonna get fucked up the ass. Anyway, next up. Disney moves around Ready or Not 2, Dog Stars, and Pixar's Gatto in 2026 and 2027 release calendars. So it seems like Ready or Not 2 has moved up a couple weeks from its April 10th release date. Then
Which is good because that means they're more confident putting it out earlier in the year. So that's good.
So The Dog Stars goes from March 27th to August 28th.
That's the Ridley Scott movie with Josh Brolin, Guy Pearce, Margaret Qualley, and Benedict Wong. Wow.
Yep. And then Gato is going from June 18th, 2027 to March 5th, 2027. So a couple things were moved forward, a couple things were moved back. So
and that actually that's going to be an interesting time because Michael B. Jordan's The Thomas Crown Affair remake comes around the same time. So there's going to be a bit of competition there. But Disney also took their holds off a few dates in 2027 and stuff. So the basically moving around their calendar dates and none of these movies are like, unless Gato does $1 billion, none of them will be super, high grossing, but they're still part of Disney's schedule. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Next, I got a couple bits of James Cameron news, but James Cameron criticizes the Oscars for Denis Villeneuve Dune snubs. You can play the awards game or make movies people actually go to. I mean, he's got a point. Like, Denis Villeneuve should have won a few more Oscars for the Dune movies he's done so far. But, I mean, look, James Cameron knows how to make money with movies. Like, the dude has collected over $6 billion with just 3 of his 12 movies, now 13. I agree with him here. But yeah, next up, James Cameron criticizes Amy Poehler's Golden Globes joke about his marriage to Catherine Bigelow being torture, an ignorant dig that went too far. I mean, yeah, but there's truth in it, probably.
Well, no, the thing is, they only were married for like 2 or 3 years, and then when this happened, so this was the year Zero Dark 30 was nominated at the Emmys, at the Golden Globes, and even what am I forgetting? Jessica Chastain, who was the lead of that movie, her jaw dropped, and that a lot of people were like, "Whoa, that seemed like." I remember when this went down, right? Because the whole thing was like, "Oh yeah, Catherine Bigelow must have been prepared to make this movie because she was anybody who was married to James Cameron for 3 years." I think it was a little too far.
It was so, why are you commenting on it now? That was fucking.
In 88 to 91, 89, 91, something like that. Back, but to be fair,
now why is he making the comment now? Why?
Well, so he's doing this now because he's been doing all these interviews and big profiles in the New York Times and Deadline, all promoting the Avatar movies. So it seems like James Cameron finally has the time to go and do all of this marketing work because he may not be immediately starting work on the next Avatar movie. So that's why, and then he's been getting asked probably questions about what is your biggest regret or stuff like that. So that's why we're getting all these quotes and stuff, or what do you remember most fondly? But he also said Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron have a pretty cordial relationship, and they were actually kind of annoyed by this because pitting the two of them against each other for 2 completely different kind of movies. Back in 2009, remember the Hurt Locker won Best Director,
and Hurt Locker won
Best Picture. It was because he was like, look, it almost puts her in a bad light because it why make the comparison? And it kind of overshadows the work she was doing, Catherine Bigelow.
All right,
and then also James Cameron, did great work. It's this, and it's sort of insinuating that they had a really bad marriage. I mean, it didn't last very long, but they were both pissed
Kim
about
K's
it.
And nobody gives a fuck about that. So
Anyway, it is what it is.
But
good for you,
but I mean,
James
to be
Cameron.
fair, James Cameron has not had good luck with marriages. He's been married 5 times at this point.
True. I mean,
you
can see
Linda Hamilton, Gail Ann Hurd, Catherine Bigelow, and I think a couple other people. So
I mean, the dude's got a bit of a workaholic tendency, and that usually leads to not having good marriages in the industry as a whole. So, but I'm kind of happy that he's just putting out all these receipts, doing these interviews, the whole Matt Damon thing the other day.
I thought, the thing is, at the time, I thought there was truth to it. I thought something bad happened, but if nothing happened, then yeah, go James Cameron to say it. But good for him, as they would say, except the reverse. But
yeah, I love how he put Matt Damon out to dry the other day. That was hilarious. He's like, oh yeah, don't worry, he would have never gotten the role in the first place. So he didn't lose $100 million. But I'm like, that's great. Matt Damon's never working for James Cameron in a movie.
But yeah. So then Heated Rivalry, the gay romance hockey drama,
and HBO Max.
has on HBO Max has gotten a 10 out of 10 rating on IMDb. That's probably not going to last long.
That's the latest episode.
It's most likely going to get review bombed or something because all the Breaking Bad fans are probably like, no, and then like.
Well, it's tied Breaking Bad as an episode of Breaking Bad as the highest ever on IMDb. And look, this is a huge hit. It just got renewed for season 2. It's an Australian drama about two hockey players that they're just in love with each other, but also they can't really be doing that openly because all the stigma around being gay in sports, especially in hockey. The show's renewed. It was going to come back for another season on HBO Max. Is on in Canada as well, I think on a different network. And it's all the rage. Like Fiona loves watching this show. She's got friends like all we talk about half the time is that. So I haven't seen it yet, but I would love to go check it out simply because of how everybody's talking about it. But apparently it's basically like prestige smut on HBO, and that's like one of the actors talking about it them in their own words, not me. So I'm not surprised that it's got a high rating because a lot of women love this show, and I'm sure also guys too. This is from the Gay Times, and good on Heated Rivalry for catching an audience and addressing an unaddressed demographic, as they say in the business. So yeah, you could say that. I don't know if that's exactly it, Caleb, but sure. All right, let's move on.
But James Gunn says he wants DC movies that are cool and different from each other to continue playing in theaters. A sly nod to, whatever's going on with Netflix. So this is a story-based medium. We want stories to be in theaters that are cool and different from each other. So
yeah. This was, I think he was just indirectly saying, this was at the Supergirl trailer launch event now a couple of weeks ago. And he was just talking about, the idea that he likes to see DC movies in theaters. And kind of implying that, hopefully whoever ends up buying Warner Brothers in DC will continue to put these movies in theaters. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's whatever the future is for them. I just hope it's a good one, and we just don't get the same mistakes from before. But speaking of Netflix and DC and WB and all that shit, Pierce Brosnan expresses concern about the merger, where he says it doesn't feel culturally right. So he, had this to say: to have one dominant force that colors what we see, how we see it, and where we see it is a change that doesn't feel culturally right. So as I love cinema, and I've seen cinemas evaporate from the landscape where I live in California. Here in London, Netflix has given me employment, but you have to be diligent and ask yourself, how do you now traverse these waters without getting mangled and embittered by it?
Yeah, I mean, he was in the Thursday Murder Club, which I don't know if there's any more of that coming or not. That had Helen Mirren and Ben Kingsley in it as well. So he's certainly worked with and for Netflix before, but he's saying it just doesn't sit right with him because he's seen movie theaters close up shop because of how much change has devastated the theatrical industry in recent years, and just doesn't sit right with him culturally if Netflix were to go ahead and, not put any Warner Brothers movies in theaters after, buying out the company next year. So yeah, I hear him. He was Dr. Fate in the DCEU. He's been on all sides of this potential change. He's worked with Netflix. He's obviously worked with Warner Brothers, and yeah. But that was a very fair-handed critique. He wasn't like saying this is gonna ruin cinema, like the kind of thing that the sentiment that James Cameron put out there. But James Cameron has no real dog in this fight, whereas Pierce Brosnan clearly has worked for both sides. So, and he's very respectful and even-handed in his take. So
yep,
I agree.
But next up, Magnolia Pictures buys Willem Dafoe and Greta Lee drama Late Fame.
Hey,
cool. I guess
I'm sure this will be like a huge hit on Letterboxd, John. As a lot of Willem Dafoe, apparently Willem Dafoe is like the most popular actor in the world if you go by Letterboxd, which is kind of crazy.
Well, it's like
to think.
Willem Dafoe is amazing. Like, of course. Come on now.
And you know what? Magnolia Pictures, good on them for picking this up. Greta Lee's on one hell of a streak herself too. So, all right, let's move on. Speaking of Letterboxd, John.
Francesca Scorsese is,
the daughter of Martin Scorsese.
Dealing with talking. It's just, the fact that he's like doing this is just really funny, in all honesty.
I think this was in promoting his new documentary, Mr. Scorsese, the 5-part series on Apple TV. And basically his daughter Francesca was like, this is a promotional stunt, obviously, on Instagram. They were doing this thing where she would read out like reviews from Letterboxd and have him guess his movie, which movie it was about. And he surprisingly got most of them right, which is kind of fun. I mean, look, Letterboxd is a great place if you're, have a love for movies and you just want to find good advice on there. You can find John on there. John's got reviews on Letterboxd.
I do. So, you can follow me if you want. Storm of Geek. That's my username. So, go out and get that. But yeah, indeed, Caleb, cinema. Unfortunately, there's only one, so it's like cinema.
I actually don't know if is Francesca Scorsese in Reno 911? I don't know. I didn't know she was an actress actually, but that I wouldn't be surprised. She's got a very talented father, and
so, I might have just doxed myself with Letterboxd. Oh well, we'll see. But that's neither here nor there.
Let's keep on going with the quick hits.
Anyway, but next up we have Jump Festa 2026. Netflix's live action One Piece season 2 reveals new look at Chopper. So
hey, we got a few more photos. Of course, Michaela Hoover in the casting announcement, but here's a few more looks at Chopper from season 2. Looks okay. Looks cute. I personally think like the live action adaptation of One Piece is just not as, the colors are not as dynamic. It's just not as colorful. I just feel like it's not doing the anime visual style justice, but it's doing it more justice than most adaptations do.
Yeah, look at like fucking Death Note or Cowboy Bebop. Those were just terrible from what I heard.
True. But Chopper looks cute. Love to see it. Can't wait to see what becomes of it. I know I'll be watching it with Fiona. She loves One Piece, so we were checking it out. She's farther ahead than I am, but yeah, it looks great. Looks good.
Yeah.
And Michaela Hoover, voicing it.
But then Cross unveils first look season 2 photos of Aldous Hodge. Matthew Lillard, he's just making the rounds of every show.
It's gonna be Matthew Lillard's world. Daredevil.
And we're just living in it.
Cross.
Alona Tala and Isaiah Mustafa.
Yeah, I love Alona Tala from all the way from Burn Notice. I mean, of course, I remember Alona Tala from Burn Notice season 7, and then also Aldous Hodge. We know he was Hawkman and Black Adam. This is based on the book series. It's Alex Cross. It's based on the same. The same writer wrote these books who wrote all the Jack Ryan books. So I'm forgetting his name. Somebody tell me in the chat. But it looks good. Season 1 was nice. He's like a police detective, and it looks like season 2 they're kind of upping the ante. It's a very different kind of case he's trying to solve. But the first season was like serial murder. This is something a little bit different. Alex Cross. I love this. I love everything from this so far. The trailer was a little confusing, but I watched it a few times. It makes sense. James Patterson, thank you, Monique. It was blanking on his name. He's the writer behind all these books, and this is on Amazon Prime. They're adapting all those franchises. Cross, Jack Ryan. I think there was a Michael B. Jordan movie they did a while ago. Anyway, this looks good, John. I don't know if you've checked it out, but if you haven't, I would recommend it.
Just fucking add it to the list, I guess. Jesus Christ.
The finale was weird. MTG, but hopefully season 2 is a little more even. So let's go.
Next up, Percy Jackson and the Olympians finds its Atlas in Holt McCallany. David Costable and Jesse L. Martin also joined season 3 cast. I believe Costable is Dr. Thorne, and I believe Jesse L. Martin is like Jackson Chase. So I think Annabelle's father.
Of course, from The Flash, he was in one of those Law and Order shows, I think. Jesse L. Martin.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Thorne, and then Frederick Chase. That's what it was. Yes, Annabeth's dad, Frederick Chase. So yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess.
Well, Caleb did dox you on Letterboxd. John's favorites are The Thing, Paranorman, Back to the Future, and Terminator 2. That's a respectable top 4.
Not in that order.
Not in that order. Not in that. Yes.
Paranorman is 4th. Back to the Future 2nd. Terminator 2 is 3rd. So.
Season 2 of Percy Jackson does look like a big improvement, and season 1 even was better than what I expected. So yeah,
I
let's
mean,
keep on
as long
rolling.
as it's better than the movie, I guess it does its job. But like,
It seems like that's a low bar.
I heard it was a mixed bag, so even then, I was just like, I won't watch it.
Let's keep on rolling. We got a couple more quick hits to get into.
But Clay Spang and Ving Rhames among new additions to 20th Actioner Painter Hulu release confirmed. So
It's
cool.
going straight to Hulu. Ving Rhames, his next project after Mission Impossible. There we go. Clay
Cool.
Spang is also an underrated actor, so yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, Sigourney Weaver says she wishes DreamWorks released a director's cut of Galaxy Quest, reminisces on a sequel that never came to pass. So yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen Galaxy Quest, one of the funniest comedies of all time. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be kind of nice to see like what would have been before they were forced to cut it down to a PG-13 rating. But like, I think that's part of the charm of it. Like, it didn't go so far where it needed to do these rated R things. But it would be interesting to see like what the vision was before they cut it down. And then I remember Sam Rockwell said they were planning a TV show sequel, and then Alan Rickman passed away. So they're like, that was just. I think they still tried to make it work, but then they just couldn't. And I think
there's actually. I love if you go to the down in the article. There's a quote from Sigourney Weaver, which I thought was really hilarious. If you zoom into this, it's in the third paragraph. She was saying in a recent interview, I wanted to play a young woman in that world of stardom, who wants so much to be a star, and who, because she's beautiful and bosomy and blonde, no one takes very seriously, not even the commander. And I felt great compassion and sisterhood with Gwen and Tawny, the fictional character, of course, she plays in the world of Galaxy Quest. So yeah, the way she kind of describes the character, obviously that character was very much the opposite of like who she plays like as Ripley in the Alien franchise. So yeah, like I think as an actor you want to do things that are different, and clearly she liked the idea of potentially playing that character one or two more times. So yeah, you broke the ship, you broke the bloody ship. Yes, love it.
You
love
broke the ship, you broke the bloody ship. Where are
Better
you
impression
going?
than I
See
did.
if there's a pub.
Nice. And that brings us to the end of the quick hits, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the news section of the show. Of course, we're not done yet, although we are done with the quick hits and the news portion of the show. We're only just getting started when it comes to DC time, because that is exactly where we're headed next, everybody. You know what time it is. It's time. It's DC time. So let's get into that, because of course, John, not only are we blessed at the end, we will also be blessed from the beginning, much like James Gunn's DCU seems to be.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you really I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all on the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka hunka.
Right, welcome on into another episode of DCU Daily. We're getting into the DC stuff proper. And, well, we've got lots to get into today. We're going to talk about... Thank you, John. We will be talking a lot of... Okay, we'll be talking about Supergirl. We got the big Brainiac news to get into from all the different angles. What it means for the DCU. What did James Gunn say? He's been busy on Threads. We'll answer those questions. And, of course, beyond that, we'll talk about Clayface and... Captain Atom, is he coming to the DCU soon? Maybe we should do a fan cast Friday for that. John, what do you think? Which of those stories are you most excited about?
Sorry, it's hot in my room. It's a stuffed nose. Anyway, but I mean, I have my shirt ready to go. So I don't know. I mean, obviously the Brainiac stuff is big, but I'm kind of curious about all the other stuff. Like all the other like little interesting tidbits here and there, smaller stuff. So, you know, obviously Brainiac is big, but I like hearing about smaller stuff as well. That's like, oh my god, not newsworthy, but you know, or like as big as that. So, you know, fun. Just anything not lanterns. I'm excited to hear about.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, right off the top, let's dive into the DC quick hits. We've got a few of them today to get into. So the very first, actually, this is not the quick hit, John. I think you're on the wrong article there.
What? Oh, did it undo itself? Hang on. Okay.
We have a few quick hits to talk about before we get into the Brainiac news. We want to save that because that's a longer conversation. So we'll get into
Yeah,
it
hold
in a
on, because
lot
the
of
thing is,
detail.
I think the fucking thing got fucked up. Hang on. Okay, I think that's right. All right, there we go. We're good.
Any Lanterns news? No. Well, is there? I don't know. We'll just stick around. Stick around. Creature Commandos is on YouTube now, actually. So if you guys haven't seen season 1 on HBO Max, you can go see it on YouTube. But John, this comes to us from the Gunverse account on Instagram. They were talking about how if you go to the website that, because remember how Paramount set up a website to promote their offer for Warner Brothers? Well, Netflix also set up a website to promote their plans for the future of Warner Brothers under their ownership. And on this website, they have featured 4 specific DC films, which I don't know, like, if you want to look at that and look and read too deep into it, because I don't think that means much for the future of the franchise. It just seems like, I think from a marketing standpoint, those are the 4 more recognizable IPs that DC brings to the table. And the 4 movies that they featured were Wonder Woman, of course, the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. They featured Justice League. I don't know if it was Zack Snyder's Justice League specifically, but it was the Justice League, one of the 2 movies. And then they also featured the new Superman movie from James Gunn, as well as Matt Reeves' The Batman. If you scroll over to the next image in this carousel, your thoughts on this? The 4 movies that they choose to feature. Of course, they could have chosen to feature The Dark Knight. But they're featuring more of the newer franchises, or in the case of the Batman and Superman, 2 ongoing franchises. Does that say anything about what Netflix's plans are for the future of DC, or is this just more like a marketing thing?
I think this is just a marketing thing. I think a lot of people know, like, these are some of the more successful thing, like, or successful and noteworthy. Like, you have the 2 concurrent ones, like with Gun Superman and then Matt Reeves the Batman. Those are the 2 franchises you have under um that you have under like DC right now with DC Studios. And then you have probably the most critically praised and probably one of the biggest hits money wise with Wonder Woman. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League, that was a whole bucket of controversy, whether it's theatrical or not. That's a noteworthy thing that a lot of people paid attention to because of the controversy. So that's like noteworthy in people's eyes. So I think that's something to talk about.
Yeah, and although they did feature a Justice League poster, it does look like the theatrical cut version. Like, if you look at the poster design, it does not look like the marketing that we saw for the Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder cut. But yeah, no, I agree. They also feature, like you said, Game of Thrones. There's Casablanca in there, talking about Warner Brothers classics. You got Knives Out franchise, Stranger Things, mentioning the Netflix side of things. So it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, they definitely should not have featured Catwoman, Caleb, and featuring an '89 Batman and '78 Superman. That's just more library titles. They don't have as much value, I think, not as much recognizability as compared to the newer movies, anyway. So yeah, let's move on to the next quick hit. The DC quick hit, as it were. The Parrots, Ducks, and Pelicans of DCU news. Matt Ryan wants to return as John Constantine in an R-rated DC series on HBO Max. John, he said, I always wanted to do the dark, gritty HBO Max R-rated Constantine where he's, if you've read the comics, you know. Your thoughts on this? Because, of course, we know that Keanu Reeves still has that sequel script in the works that James Gunn has talked about as well. So we might be getting a Constantine, whether that's connected to the DCU or not, with Keanu Reeves returning. But your thoughts on Matt Ryan even wanting to come back, or what's the prospect of him even having the opportunity to come back as Constantine?
I think it's tough because, like, I think we just kind of need to move on from both versions of Constantine. Like, sure, Keanu Reeves, it's nice. He's getting another shot at it. Cool. But I think Matt Reeves has kind of done Matt Ryan has done a lot for like he's voiced the character in a lot of stuff like City of Demons and Apocalypse War and all that shit. So like he's done like more than just the one season of the show and all his god awful Arrowverse appearances. But I think like Matt Ryan, give someone else a chance. Like at least with Keanu Reeves, he only had the one movie, so it's like okay, he's finally getting a movie this many years later. All right, that's kind of cool. But like for like DC, it's just like fucking move on from Matt Ryan. I mean, the Arrowverse pretty much nuked any goodwill he had because like he was great, and then they fucking just absolutely destroyed it because it was just so not good and not the character, and it just didn't work, and it's just like, oh god, no. So I think they just need to pick a new guy. Dan Stevens would be preferable. So but whoever they get, I just think I just think they just need a better. It would be better to move on from Matt Ryan, and maybe like give it to him, but like then that's it, and then they can move on. But no, fucking Caleb, get the fuck out of here. But
the odds of Matt Ryan coming back as Constantine are about as good as that J.J. Abrams Justice League Dark movie ever happening. So anyway, let's keep on rolling there. More quickest to come.
Yes. So the next one we have is the whole Creature Commandos thing. Creature Commandos Season 2 will reportedly feature the DCU debut of this classic hero. But Nexus Point News, who's pretty, decent, in regards to, like, has a good...
I mean, their scoops are pretty good. Their
but...
sources seem to be pretty accurate, especially with DC News. So they had a report saying Creature Commandos is an animated series, which... Actually, no, I'm reading the wrong thing there. Basically, the report they were putting out there said that the original Captain Atom is somebody who we might be seeing in the new season of Creature Commandos. We might get an appearance, or according to Nexus Point News, we will get an appearance from Captain Atom in Season 2 for Creature Commandos, which, of course, is being run by the same showrunner from Season 1. What's his name? Is Steve Laurie, I think, was it? Or Dean Laurie?
Dean Laurie.
Dean Laurie. And he, of course, also has done the Harley Quinn show on HBO Max, so he moved over from that to working in Creature Commandos. James Gunn isn't writing Creature Commandos Season 2. This is more of the traditional writer's room working on it. But John, your thoughts on Captain Atom making it into the DCU via the Creature Commandos in Season 2? Because if you look at the next post here, James Gunn shared a story featuring some artwork from Captain Atom fighting Superman from the Superman versus Captain Atom KO edition. So it looks like that's more or less confirmation this is accurate, right? Like the report from Nexus Point News.
I don't know. I
Captain
think he's
Atom?
just like hawking the fucking comic at this point because it's part of the current like comic of like Superman versus Captain Atom with the whole DCKO thing. So,
but
that is something. I could see Alan Ritchson as Captain Atom because Captain Atom is a bland fucking Wonder Bread hero that like is kind of boring. So, just Alan Ritchson, he can't act, so it's fine. Just stick him in that role and he's big buff anyway. Boom. Perfect. Anyway.
Did I say Captain America? I almost did. It's okay. Captain Atom. That's what I meant to say. John, maybe we should do a Fancast Friday on casting Captain Atom since it looks like we're getting him in. Do you think this is one of those characters, if, let's say the Nexus Point News scoop is true and James Gunn posting about it in not too long, after this scoop came out, could be confirmation. So, they probably do have this character in the show. Do you think this is a character where they're going to have the same actor who will play him in live action do the voiceover? Like,
well, I mean, that seems like what James Gunn is going for with these characters, so that makes sense.
Well, in that case, I think we need to add this as an option in the next Fancast Friday poll. That will be interesting.
We'll see if the people vote for it.
So. That's also true. That's a good point. Well, that brings us to the end of the DC Quick Hits, but now we go from that to what did the gun say? Ring, ding, 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 ring a ding, 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 ding. let's get into it, John. Talk to me about what did the Gunn say?
This was in pretty much like sharing stuff in regards to like it was a Jorge
Brainiac.
Jimenez
Yeah.
cover in regards to Superman punching Brainiac, and that was it. Like this was
This was over the
before, like,
weekend.
this was over the weekend before we got
Friday,
the
yeah.
news. So
a little bit of foreshadowing from James Gunn, and then he went on to answer a bunch of questions on Threads because the man is not getting a lot of sleep these days, as seems to be the case.
So he answered this. He's like, what's a controversial opinion that Superman would have that the Mighty Crabjoys are a classic punk band? And then I want to know what James would think Wonder Woman would listen to. And he's like, traditional Themyscirian folk music with an edge. So
sure. That's interesting. That's an interesting choice, John. Do you agree? Is that what Wonder Woman would be listening to? Folk music with an edge? That sounds to me like Gal Gadot's music. Like, it's like, I thought she was with you. She with you? I thought she was with you. Does that sound like traditional Themyscirian music with an edge? Maybe Zack Snyder and James Gunn have more in common than we realized. That would be interesting. All right, let's keep on going. We got one more. What did Gunn say? Before we get into some Supergirl updates.
Was this the one or was this the one?
No, this looks like that's the one. I think that's the. So somebody on Threads pointed out that apparently there's been this curse, about Brainiac over the years, that whenever Brainiac is considered for a Superman film, that movie gets canceled.
Yeah,
John,
so
do you think that curse has finally been broken?
I mean, well, the closest we ever got was Superman 3, because the movie was eventually made. It was just not Brainiac as the main villain. Because I've read the fucking pitch that Ilya Salkind did, and it was fucking terrible. So it was really good we did not get that movie. But I know that there was a version by a couple of writers that were writing for the Superboy TV series to do season 5, because I watched that that read through, and it was gonna be like Christopher Reeve was gonna come back. This was like late 80s, early 90s, and it was gonna be like Superman 5 Reborn or Superman Reborn. There's different versions of that script, but like the earliest version of Superman 5 was gonna have Brainiac as the main villain. He was gonna shrink down Metropolis, and like it was going to go back, and then this was like the first instance of like Superman dying and then getting resurrected, but it was very different from what we got with Death of Superman. So it very interesting script, but then that eventually got canceled, and then they tried to do Superman Reborn, and then that got canceled, and then it morphed into Superman Lives, that got canceled, and then Superman Man of Steel was going to be the sequel to Superman Returns, that got canceled. And so, it's just like a constant, like cycle of Brainiac movies getting canceled. So hopefully Man of Tomorrow can actually happen, but with the whole thing with Netflix and them getting bought out and like that whole dilemma. So we'll see if this actually gets made and we can finally get Brainiac on the big screen, because he has been a long, long time coming.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll be talking about it in more detail in a little bit. But before we get that far, John, we have a few more Supergirl updates. So let's dive into that, shall we? That's the next DC movie up on the clock. And there's fantastic
Will
artwork.
Rios. Will Rios did this really cool artwork of her drinking the the little image that was first released of Supergirl. So
right there
with
on the
her
graphic,
hideous sunglasses and her Star-Lord Walkman and her trench coat, there it is, perfect.
Wow, John! Now you're just drawing that comparison yourself that we keep telling people it's not.
I know, because it's just like, if you can't beat him, join him, right?
Let's keep on rolling. We got a couple of more updates from Supergirl.
Then Jeff Snyder. Speaking of Jeff Snyder, Caleb, you were referencing that. Jeff Snyder said he heard Supergirl was good even before the test screening, because of course I knew it was good before the test screening because I'm Jeff Snyder. I know everything. And a source who attended the screening reported that they liked the film even more than Superman. So Do with that information as you will.
Cool, because I mean, we were hearing slightly more mixed reactions from a supposed test screening last week. So believe who you believe. John chooses not to believe Jeff Snyder. So there
Yeah,
you go.
because fuck Jeff Snyder.
My source, bro. Boo. Yes. Okay, I get it. I think Tony's a cat person.
Jeff, so he says. And then
Nice.
we have Supergirl. Moving on to the next bit of Supergirl news is apparently Supergirl will take place entirely in space. Says Craig Gillespie and James Gunn. The whole movie takes place in outer space, so it's a very different world to start with. We had a completely blank slate. Yes, and James Gunn confirmed, yes, the whole movie's in outer space. The outer space thing is a big part of it because it is a space fantasy, which makes sense because that's what the comic is based around. So
yeah, I think this is also from that same trailer event, and the more quotes coming out from that now. It makes sense that it's set entirely in space, like you said, based on the Woman of Tomorrow comic book. But if you go to the next article, I did want to quickly ask you the question, because comicbookmovie.com are putting this out there. It's an editorial piece. It poses a good question that when you compare the vibrant, sci-fi heavy artwork and storytelling of the Woman in Tomorrow comic book, John, to what we have seen so far in the trailer. Again, less than 2 minutes of footage, probably not entirely finished, but it just, like we were talking about earlier, like the Odyssey feels very tangible. It feels classic filmmaking, big screen Hollywood filmmaking. Whereas the Supergirl trailer definitely felt off in the sense that all these fantastical worlds from the comic that she's meant to be visiting look very similar to like Earth, really. And the villain design looks a little underwhelming. It's not that traditional, hair color for Creme of the Yellow Hill. And while Lobo was certainly interesting, we only got to see him for like less than a second worth. So, do you think that's a problem for Supergirl, that not being able to adapt that to screen?
Yes, because that's pretty much the thing that everyone can universally agree on in terms of the comic, whether they think the story is good or bad, is the art is fucking amazing. Like Elvis, or not Elvis, fucking Evie Blakely or whatever the fuck her name is.
Elvis
Blakely or something like that.
No, Bilquis Evely. That's her name.
That was it. Bilquis, whatever.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce her name. I'm bad at pronouncing names. It's fine. That artist, she did a very good job, and that was pretty much the big thing in regards to that, in regards to that book. So, I find it interesting. This would be interesting. But
thank you, Caleb.
Okay. But you know what would be funny? It would be the funniest thing ever if, like, the comic had really amazing art, yet the story is shit. Yet the movie could have a really great story, but the cinematography and colors are shit. That would be a funny trade-off. So we get a good story, but we don't get the greatness of the colors and the art for the book. I think that could be a funny kind of thing a little bit.
I mean, the other question I had was do you think tweaking the color grading would be enough to save this movie? If that is indeed because the thing is, color grading can do a lot for your movie, but it's not going to all of a sudden change the composition of the shot, or unless you're changing the ground that looks brown into purple, or a bright yellow or orange or neon green. I don't know. There's only so much that will do. We saw how much they changed the color grading and made it more polished for Superman, but it wasn't they completely changed the way the movie looked from the trailers. You could see the connection, but it wasn't a completely different looking movie. So it looked better, but not entirely different. Do you think there's enough room there for Supergirl to make that improvement?
I don't.
Or do you think
that's
that's
gonna be?
Too big
I don't
of a...
think visually it's gonna be saved. And sure, they can tweak some things to make it a little bit more colorful, but it's still not going to be saved, because the thing is, what they're doubling down on the idea of it being a space western. That's the whole shtick of it all, because that's what the book is. The book is literally True Grit in space. It's literally a famous western film in space. That's the basis of it. So, and then kind of going for more Mandalorian vibes and that kind of thing. So that makes sense, because it's the whole basis of Mandalorian, that's a space western. So it makes sense that they would kind of double down on the whole brownness thing. It's just like, it just sucks because it's like you have like Superman, which was this really bright, colorful movie that really doubled down on like the comic book feel. And then they turn around and they just give us this really bland looking palette. And I wouldn't say that would make the movie horrible by any means, because again, it would be really funny if like the movie story was good, yet the art was bad, yet for the book, the art was good and the story's bad. So, it's just, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I just think, they might still have some work to do on it. It might look a little bit better in the long once the movie gets released, but it's not going to like change the whole movie. So if people are upset that it looks this brown, then go to the Street Fighter movie, because that looks like it has actual colors in it. So, that's the best I could say, bro.
Yeah, well, it will set the tone and the mood, like Monique was saying. And as far as the role that Lobo would play, I don't think Justin Guy that he's going to be in there for very long. Probably a couple of fight sequences at best, maybe a couple of lines of dialogue, just enough to give us, a taste of what Lobo is going to look and feel like in the larger DCU, and hopefully enough for them to be able to greenlight a solo Lobo adventure. So that's probably how much. Yeah, maybe like 10 minutes of screen time at best. It's not really a Lobo movie. He's not even really a big factor in the actual comic book that they're adapting. So you know what? The Book of Eli is a good comparison, enterprising in terms of the look of the movie so far. Again, I will always point out, until we get at least a few more trailers, or at least one more trailer, that we've only seen like 2 minutes of footage from this movie so far. So hopefully, they're saving the best for last. But yeah. Is that one of the powers of one of the Street Fighter characters, to like suck the colors out of something? I don't know. Maybe that's
No,
maybe
he's just joking, because that's what I said. So
that's what. Okay. Yeah.
Because the Supergirl trailer dropped, and then it was like so bland looking, and then the Street Fighter trailer dropped, and it looked so bright, colorful, insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, so this is where the colors for Supergirl went.
Right.
So,
yeah. No. Good point. Good point. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna take all that criticism on the internet, and hopefully, the next trailer we get will have more color in it. Well, right now we're gonna get into something a little more colorful. That, of course, is Brainiac. We got the announcement on Saturday from James Gunn, and he finally gave us the name of the actor who's gonna be playing the villain of Man of Tomorrow, Lars Ettinger, who has quite the resume, actually. We'll talk about it in detail, but John, here we go. We know now, according to James Gunn, it's official. Brainiac is joining up with the DCU, and it is going to be played by Lars Ettinger, who is one heck of an actor in his own right. And this is the announcement from James Gunn. It was all over social media, on Instagram, on Threads here, like we're seeing. Gunn said, in our worldwide search for Brainiac and Man of Tomorrow, Lars Ettinger rose to the top. Welcome to the DCU, Lars. Your initial reaction to this when this came out, John, and what do you expect from Lars in the role?
Well, my initial reaction was, who? And that was pretty much it, because I have no fucking clue who this dude is. So, but like, it's kind of the idea of like, yeah, sure, there was a lot of like famous people you could have gone with. That was like typecasting and all that. But I do like the fact that James Gunn, we know who well, I mean, he kind of insinuated that Brainiac was going to be the villain, and now he's just confirming he's the villain. So, I think I'm glad that it seems like he's going with a guy who's just giving like a good performance. That's good. That's good. And and he's German, so like German as the villain, I mean, that's just a no-brainer right there.
Oh, come on, dude, that's racist.
That's not racist, because it has racist nothing to do with it. And also Flula Borg, who is German, said the same exact thing. So fuck you. He's of course you play the best villains. I mean, look at the villains like of the 30s and 40s. Hello. And it's just like,
Damn, maybe Tony found his long lost neighbor. That's okay. Are you sure, Tony? Because Germany is a big country.
There's no country. Yeah, I hope they like shave that head and they don't give the Anton Sugar, fucking, dumbass
Caleb is
haircut.
half
But
German. John, you're offending half of our audience. Come on
I
now.
don't fucking give a shit,
Wow.
Caleb. You offend me on a daily basis just by existing. Like, the fuck you mean, bro? Anyway,
Okay. Well, look, here's my reaction. I saw like what Tony said was my reaction. I looked at this news and I was like, "Damn it, James! Like, why didn't you drop this like on the Friday while we were live, literally hours before this hit came out? Or why didn't you wait till Monday? Now we can't talk about it till Monday unless we do like an emergency live show." But John, let's talk about the resume of Lars Ettinger, somebody who a lot of people probably don't recognize because he's not been in a ton of big franchises. But in this article on Deadline, if you scroll down, they do give us a little bit of an idea of what he has done before, and it's an impressive list. So let's go through some of his work. Of course, he was recently nominated for a European award, and he's starred in such movies as Olivier Assayas's okay, hopefully I said that right. Cloud of Sils, Maria, and Personal Shopper in the Netflix Noah Baumbach
I have heard of
directed movie
Personal
Jay
Shopper.
Kelly. So I mean, he's in Jay Kelly. That's a big one. That's with George Clooney and Adam Sandler. And then of course, hello Johnny, by the way, in the chat. Then we have a bunch of other projects that he's been in. Of course, he was nominated for a European actor at the European Film Awards for the Matthias Glasner directed movie Dying last year. So John, he's definitely done a few things. He's got a resume that's if you are an actor's actor, like he's somebody like you who's got that kind of experience. But he doesn't really bring like the star power like some people were assuming. Like, he's not Matt Smith. He's not certainly any of the other big names that we had attached to the role potentially in the rumors. Uh, but he rose to the top through the auditions. In fact, if you go to the next link on Thread, somebody pointed out that Lars has a history of Superman fandom. So it looks like he has a certain passion he might bring to the role, especially now potentially facing off against both Superman and Lex Luthor. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely kind of funny. So there's that as well. But I will say it is absolutely fucking hilarious. And Geeky Guy might know what I'm talking about, but a friend of mine has wanted fucking Brainiac in a Superman film for years. Like, he's like, that's the one fucking villain I wanted to see. We never got him. We kept getting Lex Luthor. We kept getting Zod. It's like, okay, fine, but like, I just want fucking Brainiac. He's like, I just want Brainiac. And finally, we get Brainiac in a movie, and my friend absolutely abhors James Gunn with every fiber of his fucking being. And I could just imagine him getting absolutely fucking rage-induced with the fact he's finally getting the villain he wants, but it's by the director he hates the most. Because he did finally see Superman, and he absolutely fucking hated it. So, it's I don't know. That brings me some kind of joy in a weird sort of way. So,
I don't know what to say. I mean, look, I don't know much about his like acting resume beyond the credits that he has got. I haven't seen him in a ton of things personally, so I trust that James Gunn made the right choice. Of course, I guess Lars was also a rapper at one point. Like the social media, snooping was well underway over the weekend. If you go to the next link, uh, we could talk about that for a bit. Good point, Tony, by the way, on Peter Capaldi. We did talk about that actually in our Brainiac fan casting too. But somebody pointed out on Threads that Lars's Wikipedia says he's a rapper, so Brainiac better drop some bars.
But
there you
Laya says he's not a rapper. And then he's like, why would Wikipedia lie that? He's a DJ, not a rapper.
He's a DJ. So. Okay. All right. So maybe a little bit of a game of telephone there between those two things.
It was me, Barry.
It was me, Barry.
It was me. I was the one that put James Gunn at the head of DC Studios so John's friend can be pissed at its existence constantly.
But... Okay. Hey, Jordan. Hello. He'll be a great Brainiac. Yeah, I think a lot of us looking at his resume, like he's certainly impressed with like multiple time award nominee, and Jay Kelly's a great movie. He's never really been in as big of a role in terms of like the mainstream. So this will certainly be something which will hopefully elevate his career. Just some geeky guy saying, John, isn't it ironic that I, the Snyder bro, like Superman, but our mutual friend who is also a Snyder bro hated it? The duality of man, says just some
True.
geeky guy.
Yeah.
So, hey, it goes to show you movies are subjective, right?
Yeah.
Spacerland, hello, how are you doing? James Gunn, don't miss with the casting. When will we learn that? LOL. Well, speaking of which, John, a lot of people were wondering, well, how did you get to this conclusion? How did you end up casting this relative unknown Lars for the role of Brainiac? And the simple answer James Gunn said, much like what he said in his post, his audition. It was just that. Like, I think
he said the same thing for Aaron Pierre, because everyone was like, "Oh, you cast him for Rebel Ridge." He's like, "No, because he gave the fucking best audition." So I mean, and it's not like totally out there for him to like recognize someone from a movie and then consider them. I mean, that's what happened with David Cornsweet. He saw Pearl and he's like, "Oh shit, this guy right here, Jen." Get him on the phone. Just like, I can, it's just, I can imagine that's what it, it should have been Neil Breen. Oh my God, Superman. I can't believe it. I can't believe you're attacking me right now. Just.
Yeah, apparently, when James Gunn does miss on the casting, he stops filming and then replaces them with Michael Rooker. That's usually what he does. And then, he doesn't miss. So officially, you never get to see the misses. That's seems to be the case. He does, I mean, a lot of big
Freddie
movies
Stroma,
do.
Remember that. He was also a replacement.
True. Also, Michael Rooker's role in Peacemaker season 2. But yeah, I mean, James Gunn as well has a lot of big studios for these, especially these franchise picks. They do audition tests, and they did that obviously with Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre. I'm sure they did some kind of testing like that here. We'll find out more in the future. We did talk about Creature Commando season 2, Hunter Iggy, actually. The idea that Captain Atom will be showing up, there's a report out there, James Gunn sharing the photo online, so it's looking quite likely that we'll get a Captain Atom. We might make that a choice in the Fancast Friday poll for the next week, and so, maybe we can talk about that more then. But John, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about the lead up to this, and then we'll talk about what to expect from this particular iteration of Brainiac. But James Gunn was also busy answering other questions earlier in the last week, where people kept asking him, why did you shoot down the whole Dave Bautista rumor playing Brainiac? And he was saying, look, he's a friend, and I don't need a bunch of stories out there about why he didn't get the job or whatever when someone is eventually cast. And then somebody asked him, James, did you confirm Brainiac? Did you just confirm Brainiac? Why were they asking that? Because James Gunn used the word eventually. And well, what do you know? A couple of days later, he announces it. It's official.
Because I think people were like I think the rumors were like, I think Lars was cast a while ago, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple days, who knows? But I think he was just officially
O'Shea.
I think like people made it personal when Dave Bautista, and he's like, I don't like that. That's my friend. Like it's weird. Like I need to get a one up on this now. Plus, maybe he also saw all the Marvel leaks, and he's like, shit, I gotta fucking post Brainiac before one of these motherfuckers fucking leaks this shit.
Like what the folks at the Universal Pictures were doing for the Odyssey. They're like, we gotta get ahead of the leaks.
Technically, it's both, because he's a bio. He's a both robot and an alien. He's a bioorganism, so
it would make sense. And you wouldn't be able to hide it for too long, especially because once they start filming, it's harder and harder to hide that stuff. Even if you're filming on a close set nowadays, you get like these drone shots and stuff, so it's hard. Like you gotta, and then I'm guessing they're gonna probably do more SFX makeup on him on Brainiac, so it's not gonna be like a very CG heavy look, probably similar to what they did with the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Forgetting the name of the villain. What was the name of the villain in the last Guardians movie? Yeah, but like it was a very practical. Yeah, it was a very practical look for that. So I think similar here. So you got to get ahead of that and put it out there before the internet kind of gets their own sneak peek at it and gets leaked. I did not see that Grace Randolph said Zatanna is expected in Clayface, but then again, I don't see a lot of things Grace Randolph talks about. So sorry, Pacerline, but we'll wait for a more credible source on that. Enterprising saying or asking or saying where there's a Captain Atom, there's also a major force. Anyone who's seen Superman, Batman, Public Enemies knows what I'm talking about. Well, we'll see. And thank you. Yeah, High Evolutionary. for correcting me on that. But John, let's talk about specifically what James Gunn said about the why now of the whole announcement of Brainiac, because obviously he talked about why not Dave Bautista, and promising us that we would eventually get an announcement. We only had to wait a few days for that announcement to come through. But now we got to talk about James Gunn answering the question of why did he make that announcement now? Because he could have held on to it. You know, he was hinting at it, but he was never quite giving us the confirmation, John. So if you go to the comicbookmovie.com article, it's quoting a couple of other questions that James Gunn answered earlier today, including something about Clayface. And speaking of Clayface, we'll talk about that. But before we do, he was asked for clarification on Threads, like why do this announcement now? And then also, like, you know, what about like the Batman Part 2 and all of that? Like, do you have a double standard for like announcing things and whatnot? And well, James Gunn had the answer. The Batman Part 2 is a DC Studios film, and Peter and I are producers, but generally we don't have a ton of announcements about any movie that isn't even in production yet. Obviously, both of these movies are in pre-production. They're not in production yet. They're going to go into production around the same time next year. Gunn went on to say things like Lars' Brainiac announcement were because we knew it was going to get out there. Exactly what I was saying, John. It looks like they wanted to get ahead of it, and they didn't want it to kind of, you know, get leaked. They would rather have it come from the source first. So you got to imagine that Matt Reeves, as you get closer to filming, maybe we'll get an idea of who might be the villain of that movie, because of course there was this rumor going around that is it, you know, maybe we were going to see a Clayface in the Matt Reeves movie. Somebody asked James Gunn exactly that. Can you tell us, is it true that Matt Reeves wanted to put a realistic version of Clayface in the Batman Part 2, and since you introduced him in Creature Commandos, James Gunn did, that he had told Matt Reeves to find another villain for the Batman Part 2, and that's why he was delayed writing the script. Well, Gunn said, what? Laughing emoji. Where does this stuff come from? No, it's not it's the exact same script it has been from the beginning. So James Gunn basically saying, you know, without actually denying the fact that Clayface is in the movie or not, he said, look, we didn't make any changes. I'm not announcing anything about the Batman Part 2 because we were just producing it, so it's not my, basically saying it's not my place to make those announcements, but also saying that the movie's in pre-production, so we're not really letting that get, you know, letting any surprises get out there just yet. And also saying earlier that the Brainiac announcement was made simply because he thought that they would, you know, not be able to contain that as a secret, and it would just get leaked anyway. Your thoughts on this, John? Do you think James Gunn is implying that there is no Clayface in that movie, or is he saying that there was no Clayface in that movie to begin with? The Batman Part 2, that is.
Yeah, I think I think he just wanted to like clarify kind of everything, and you know, just because I think he has said multiple times that, like, you know, it just, I don't know, it's just like, it's just sickening to see all this shit. And I mean, he fucking did all this shit so much with like the whole Dave Bautista thing. He's like, oh, my friend is being brought into this. I don't really like that. So, you know, he did that. But it's just with Batman, and you know, it's just like the clarification of like, because I think like it's also, you're kind of getting personal with it in a way, like
I will say, just for a moment, to add a bit of nuance, Deadline did report they were considering Clayface for that movie. So that's a pretty, you know, credible source. This is from a couple of years ago now. So just to kind of add that nuance, it wasn't like just random scoopers talking about Clayface being in the Batman Part 2. It was Deadline reporting they were looking for a Clayface potentially. So if that, I don't know if that colors the situation any differently. What do you think?
You know, I think that's entirely possible. So, you know, I like how they use the picture from fucking Roy Westerman's Earth 27. So, you know, I mean, it's good that they didn't go with that. And you know, that maybe they just heard it from the wrong things and all that in Deadlines. Because once in a blue moon, like Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, they do get some things. It's very, you know, unlikely, and it's very, you know, very once in a blue moon kind of thing, but you get things wrong. And so maybe they just heard from, maybe the source heard things wrong, whatever it is. But you know, it's yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's very possible, but as of right now, I mean, look, James Gunn didn't confirm or deny that Clayface will be in that movie. It will be interesting though if we get a Clayface movie next year, and then the year after Clayface is the villain of the Batman Part 2. That might be slightly confusing. So I don't know if that's indeed where they're going. But hey, Stacy's in the chat. Hello, Stacy. Hope you're doing well. Caleb saying also James Gunn didn't cast his friend as Brainiac. They take that, critical drinker. All right, cool. So that's one.
Fuck critical
more
drinker.
for
That fucking
James Gunn.
bitch boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep on going here, John, because James Gunn did share his inspiration for Brainiac, which I think is very useful information in terms of like how he's gonna color this whole character, and I'm not just saying literally, the color green, which is traditionally associated with the character, but like what is this Brainiac gonna look, feel, and sound like? What he said specifically for his inspiration for the character in Man of Tomorrow was, I love aspects of many versions of the character, from the 1950s Brainiac stuff to the surprisingly scary Wolfman stuff to the animated versions, and up through the truly creepy and wonderful current absolute Brainiac. John, it looks like James Gunn has all these inspirations from literally across the decades, including the iteration in Absolute Brainiac, which is absolutely wild if you have seen the artwork at least. Your thoughts on what this means for the character, given the inspirations James Gunn is pulling here? We've talked about it in the past. He likes to do this for this all the characters he tackles, like he did it for Superman. He pointed us to like those very specific inspirations. What do you think this means for Brainiac? Because like not all of these Brainiacs are created the same, and the canon for Brainiac has changed over the years in the DC Comics.
Yeah, I like how he's just getting stuff from all sources. Like you have kind of the quote unquote cheesier stuff from like the 1950s, but then you get the Marv Wolfman stuff, and then you get the animated version. So we're getting, and I like how he's referencing all of this, so he's not tailoring down like, oh, I'm a big fan of the Wolfman stuff. And then everyone's just saying, oh, cool, then we're going to fucking get the Marv Wolfman version, and that's going to be the version. That's what he's adapting. So, no, but he's giving a whole decade's worth of stuff. One, it helps the whole idea that he's an actual comic book fan and knows what he's talking about, first off. Second, it gives a wide range of backstories, looks, ideas, performances, vibes, so that you can't tie down like what the fans are saying, like, oh yeah, he's definitely doing this, he's definitely doing that. I'm like, oh, we could have a little bit of Binder, we could have a little bit of Wolfman, we got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then it creates his own version, kind of like what he did for his version of Superman,
like an amalgamation.
Yes, an amalgamation of everything. So we're not getting just one story, one artist, one writer, and that's what we're getting. We're getting a whole bunch of stuff.
I think M2G pointing out like there was that version of in Smallville, which was like an AI created by the House of L, that became Brainiac. Like if that's where they go with, maybe that could be interesting, because like an AI running amok could be interesting. It could also be that this Brainiac did indeed destroy Krypton in the DCU, much like it did in the comic book iterations as well. That would all be very, very, very interesting directions to go in. But John, there was some interesting fan art, because of course there's been a couple of days now since over the weekend this news was announced, and so Boss Logic, one of the best artists out there in the game, they put together some new fan art for Brainiac. Let's take a quick look at that. I think we used one of the images in the thumbnail for today's show. Do you think this is the kind of look we're gonna go for, or like is it gonna be a little more unconventional? Because this is pretty accurate to the comic book iterations, especially recent years.
Yeah, so it kind of does what a little bit of both. Like it has the robotic vibe, but it also has like he's like kind of an alien vibe. I like both. I mean, it's kind of like he's gonna probably have green skin. He's probably gonna have the purple things all over his body, and then like some vibe. So we're kind of, that's usually what Brainiac is as a character. I know like very early on he was more just like a regular kind of robot looking character when he was at least first introduced, and then he evolved into more like the green character from like reboots and all that shit. So yeah, I think that's essentially what it is, and I think that we are gonna get something like this. Not exactly, obviously. James Gunn has whatever he wants to do, so yeah.
Yeah. I do love the idea that this is, as a character, Brainiac is going to be able to match both the brains of Lex Luthor and the brawn of Superman. That will be interesting because there's very few characters in the Superman mythos that can do that, especially if you go with certain iterations, like where there's just like this larger than life character. Hi, Eric. Thanks for joining in the show. You can be kind and rewind if you want to check out any of the stuff you missed earlier. But of course, we're talking Brainiac right now. John, there was this other image as well, which is in our lower third graphic, kind of like really this cool version of the logo, the Superman crest. If you do go with the House of L origin story for Brainiac, that would be a nice transition almost. Like maybe even a big reveal potentially that this Brainiac comes from the House of L and has Kryptonian origin. Especially in light of the idea that these Kryptonians are, like the way they've been portrayed so far, like Superman's parents, they're kind of cold. Like their sense of logic, like they're not really maybe people who have the same moral compass as us humans do on Earth. Do you think that would lead in the direction where maybe they're the ones who created Brainiac? Yeah, and it just ends up becoming like a thing of its own. Like, do you think that might be the direction they might go in, given who the Kryptonians are as we know them so far in the DCU?
That's entirely possible. I mean, considering that the movie of Superman felt like one giant episode for Superman the Animated Series, I could definitely feel like them going into that vibe. Like, definitely like, oh, it's kind of a lot of it is the animated version of like Brainiac was in fact this, this like thing on Krypton, and then it kind of maybe like Brainiac was what they could do. I forget. I mean, I watched the first 3 episodes of the animated series a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact things, but I think it was like Brainiac was like they didn't warn them that Krypton was going to explode, and then like he's like, I'm just going to save myself, and then Jor was like, oh my god, it's too late, and blah blah blah. I think what would be really interesting is if like the thing that was damaged was like a prototype Brainiac. And then like through like the engineer, because the engineer, when she's going through that stuff, the tentacles that come out of her is kind of looks like the Brainiac from Injustice 2 with the tentacles coming out. So like maybe like the mix of like the nanites and the Kryptonian technology, they kind of create Brainiac. And then like the thing that was in the Kryptonian pod was like Brainiac's like Jor-El's like, okay, Brainiac or whatever the fucking like software is, like, you need to protect Kal-El and make sure he goes through with the mission. So the mission is like conquering Earth and shit like that. So that's why Lex Luthor comes in, because he's like, oh shit, I accidentally created this and it's gonna fuck up the world, and I need to save the world because I'm the man of tomorrow. So I can't have the super. I'll team up with Superman for now, but I need to be the fucking hero. So that's what causes him to actually do this, because it's technically his fault. That would be an interesting way to take it. So,
and you know what's really interesting about your theory? Maria Gabriela de Faria, who plays the engineer, posted in her stories over the weekend an image from James Gunn's post, and so with the text saying, "Hi, Brainiac," and we know the engineer is going to be in this movie. So the pieces are all there. It could all fit together really well. So that is a really interesting theory to share there. And if they go in that direction, I'd be perfectly happy to see how it all plays out. Because then you're not really, you're adding a piece that feels organically like it's part of the story that we were already telling. And then Batman drops in and says, "No, I'm the man." Thank you, MTG. I don't think Batman's dropping in Man of Tomorrow, but maybe we'll see. But hey, you know what? Let's take a look at this other article from the comicbookmovie.com, which kind of just gives us a nice summary of where we are at right now, of everything we have talked about, so we can kind of like wrap this up with a nice bow. So everything we need to know about, of course, Brainiac, and of course Lars Ettinger's portrayal of the villain, who's going to be the first live action iteration in a DC movie. Let's kind of go down the list. I think they break this up into a few different talking points. So the very first talking point they have here. Oh, hello. We got Kizar Bhatti in the chat. How you doing? So in the comics, John, you talked about how Brainiac, has very different origins. But of course, he's created by Otto Binder and Al Plastino. He, of course, made his debut in the DC Comics all the way back in 1958's Action Comics 242. So if you want to check out his origin, you can go back and check that out. That's a great place to find, who Brainiac was originally as a character. Um, I would love to see how the engineer figures into this plot, by the way, Eric. So let's keep on going. The next point I wanted to go through here in the article on comicbookmovie.com is about the villain's evolution. Now, John, you mentioned this. There's been many different iterations of the character. He's gone from being like this, like an alien or who's an organic being, to being literally a robot, to like being just like the super powerful AI. And you're saying that, maybe James Gunn pointing to all these different iterations from the 50s all the way to like the ones that we got right now in Absolute Brainiac, we might get an amalgamation, even if, it's got a direct connection to the Kryptonians themselves and even the House of L. That would be really cool, because you want to get that look where he's sort of like that cyborgian creature who's all powerful and could match the like I said, the brains of Lex Luthor and the brawn of Superman, because those will be the leads of the movie. So it makes all the sense in the world. Then if you keep going down further, there's a few more points in this article. So the third point they make here is the real Brainiac is revealed. John, can you tell us a little bit about this, because this was from the Jeff Johns run of the character, and it's sort of like this reinvention who Brainiac was as a character almost, and like in the Crisis era. Like, did you like that iteration, and do you think there's a chance that will play into the movie iteration of the character?
Possibly. So maybe like, there was like a probe attached to like his Kryptonian ship, and then
Hey, Victor.
they and then the probe got damaged, and then that kind of had Brainiac, and then they could reveal like a greater whatever they decide to do. That could definitely bring in some aspects here and there. So
yeah, no, I would love to see. I mean, that to me is a great, actually. I'm not a big Jeff Johns fan, but I actually really was curious. Like, and I love the idea behind that version of Brainiac. Just Some Geeky Guys is sending in another super chat. Thank you, dude. Saying, if Gunn adapts Kingdom Come eventually, as he teased in October 2022, will he do it as an Elseworlds tale, or with Corn Sweat eventually 10 years from now? John, your thoughts on that? It's a bit of a sidebar question, but it's really interesting idea.
I think he's just adopting the crest for now. I don't think he has like any sort of real plans for it. So yeah, I think I don't think he has any major plans for it. Just for right now, I think he's just like kind of adopting certain things from it. I don't think that's like the end game or whatever the fuck.
Okay, and then one more question before I move on to the next point in this article. In that Crisis iteration of Brainiac, it's what Brainiac does that leads to the death of Pa Kent from a heart attack, because his entire Kent farm is destroyed and stuff. Do you think that Brainiac might play into that? Maybe like Pa Kent doesn't survive Man of Tomorrow? Is that possible?
They could definitely do that. I think so I definitely think that that is definitely like something, but like because James Gunn did say, he's like, it would be stupid of me to cast Pruitt Taylor Vince and then have him die in one movie. So it's like, oh, but he never said anything about two movies. So, it's entirely possible that, he's waiting. So he's kind of doing like a post-crisis thing, but then at the same time, like he could wait and have Jonathan Kent actually, die in this case, and, bring back those, older origins for Jonathan Kent, who did die pre-crisis, and then eventually become the thing that everyone remembers because it was in the Superman movie and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that would definitely be a very interesting vibe, an interesting decision to do, because then it's a big thing for his development. So
yeah, no, that would be, I don't, it didn't make sense for Pa Kent to die in Superman, considering the story that they were telling. But yeah, maybe in this case, like, you want to make that character death count for something. Like the emotional stakes need to be raised, and maybe it would make more sense here. Hey, Johnny,
And the fact that
Rico's,
like he finally accepted, like he's not just doing this because his biological father told him to.
Right.
He's doing this because that's what he was raised to believe by his very good
Exactly.
parents. And the fact that now he's finally accepted that he dies would be a very big blow, especially with how that the whole speech from Jonathan Kent was like more earned here, where it was like the choices you make, that's what makes you who you are. And so I think that's a very good way to do it, is like really develop the character and relationship and then have that taken away instead of immediately taken away.
Right.
And don't give him that lesson early on. Give him that, like, you can't save everyone, or you could give it a different meaning because it's a different continuity. So whatever they decide to do, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. Also, interesting point made by Johnny Rico and a couple of you guys in the chat that Brainiac is potentially a Justice League level villain, and he's also the kind of character who might stick around for more than one movie. That would be interesting to see how that happens if they do go down that road. But in terms of the last few times we have seen Brainiac, John, we haven't seen him very often. But we did see him in, obviously, the Krypton, the show, like you seeing that photo there of Brainiac from that show, which I think is the only live-action iteration of Brainiac, kind of most, potentially the closest iteration to what we will see in Man of Tomorrow, if you scroll up a little bit. And then there's also the iteration of Brainiac that
we also got him in Krypton, too.
That's what I was talking about. That's Krypton. That's the one right there. If you scroll up.
You said Smallville.
Yeah.
Because...
Oh, did I say that? Sorry. Yeah. Krypton. He was in Krypton. In Smallville, he was... not quite like your comic accurate iteration, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then of course we got like it was like an AI, and then we got in Supergirl we got the Brainiac 5,
which is like one of his descendants or like another version or a clone or whatever.
Exactly. So I think visually, if you scroll up to this image from Krypton, that to me so far has been the best live action iteration of Brainiac. Despite the fact the show didn't last very long. So I'd imagine hopefully it will be closer to this look than it would be to like any of the other iterations we have seen, or not seen rather. So but yeah, let's go on to the last point in this article, and then we got another super chat coming in from Eric that we gotta go through. But as far as, of course, I mentioned earlier, the version of Brainiac we'll get to see in Man of Tomorrow, James Gunn did mention that he's got inspirations from across the spectrum of depictions, all the way back from the 50s into the absolute version of the character that's currently in the Absolute Superman comics. John, do you think, given James Gunn's roots as a filmmaker, that he's gonna go down that body horror route, where we're gonna get not just Brainiac as like a physical threat to Superman and Lex Luthor, but like he might have an army of aliens and robots, that are doing his bidding, like we talked about, maybe the engineer. A lot of you guys in the chat were talking about this as well. Do you think we're gonna get a Brainiac who's more than just a single entity that is able to kind of overwhelm like that? Maybe we need a reason for both Lex Luthor and Superman to rally against this guy. Do we think we're going to go in that direction? Maybe, and
I mean, it's entirely possible. He did bring body horror aspects into the Suicide Squad, so there is that. I could definitely see them doing it, like the Absolute Brainiac. You did mention that, so it's entirely possible that he goes for more of like the horror route, being more of his background with horror stuff. So definitely, that could definitely be the case, and that could definitely be interesting. Like really bring in the horror of Brainiac, and that would be awesome. So.
That would be awesome. Now, I don't know if they're going to have any of the Lanterns in this movie, but I do like the idea that you need maybe more help from other potential Justice Leaguers. But that might be like a follow-up, maybe if this movie has a more of a tragic ending, kind of like Infinity War, and then you get to like a Justice League movie where Brainiac is still the villain. That would be interesting to see. But to address the super chat from Eric, thank you so much for the super chat. He was asking, did you talk about Pierce Brosnan's comments on the WB Netflix merger? Yeah, we did actually talk about it. That was one of the quick hits that we had. Eric was saying, I love that people, particularly actors and directors with pull, are speaking up. Yeah, I don't know how much Pierce Brosnan has pull per se in Hollywood today. Certainly not as much as what we get from like somebody like a James Gunn, but yeah, it's good to hear everybody voicing their opinion because it puts more pressure on Netflix publicly to stick by their statements that they're going to keep Warner Brothers as an independent company and keep putting movies in theaters. So we'll talk about it more as there's more updates. But yeah, just rewind back and if you want to watch all that conversation, we talked about all the updates today on the deal, and Paramount's still in the play, and potentially being able to get their hands on Warner Brothers, what Netflix is doing about it, and what Warner Brothers wants to do. So, but with that said, last comment. Yeah, Metropolis getting bottled, John. We saw that in the Supergirl trailer.
Mhm.
That whether it's Argo City or whatever is getting, I don't know if you want to call it bottled. That's at least getting pulled out of Krypton. So I wonder, do you think there's any chance we get a Brainiac cameo in Supergirl or some kind of reference in Supergirl at all?
Maybe that's why they're settling it now. So yeah, but maybe nothing major. Just like kind of like, oh, maybe a ship or like a offhanded reference, because James Gunn is the one who is casting him. It seems like, because same thing happened with Millie Alcock. How he cast her because she was in Superman. So I don't think Brainiac Lars Ettinger is going to be in Supergirl, but I think he is, maybe Brainiac will be referenced at some point.
Like, it might be an underrated reference, but everybody in the know will be doing that meme, that Leo meme. Yep. And then we'll just go from there. All right, Brainiac in post credits. That will be interesting. I don't think James Gunn is really a big fan of doing that kind of thing, because he said that he doesn't like these post credit sequences to be very important to the overall story of the DCU. They're more like just little tags.
I mean, what do you want me to pull it back apart and pull it back together again? Hey, I'm sorry, man. I could be just such a jerk sometimes.
I could be such a jerk sometimes. It was the most like I actually, that made me leave with a smile on my face.
G. Willikers, I love it. I love it. Perfect.
He will be in the Yellow Hills. All right, cool.
Yes.
And on that wonderful note, I think we'll wrap up this really long edition of DCU Daily to start off what is going to be a short week, everybody. So just to let you guys know as we finish up, tomorrow or later today, depending on when you're watching this, on Tuesday, we have the doubleheader with DCU Daily and Tier List Tuesday. It looks like the poll, the winner of the poll was X-Men movies, Fox X-Men movies. That's what will be featured on Tier List Tuesday. In a matter of hours from now, we'll have DCU Daily and then Tier List Tuesday. And then, of course, dude, on Wednesday, we'll... what the hey? Yeah, on Wednesday, we'll have a DCU Daily. And then on Thursday, it's Christmas Day, so we will be taking that day off. However, there will be a new DCU Daily editorial video dropping where we compare the success of The Flash, the success of Spider-Man No Way Home to the failure of The Flash. Why one failed where the other one succeeded, and all the different reasons behind that. So definitely look for that on Thursday, Christmas Day. I hope if you celebrate, then Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas. If you don't celebrate that, then Happy Holidays. It's that time of the year. Victor Hugo, we did talk about what characters do you expect from Man of Tomorrow. We'll bring that in more later in the week as we talk about more Brainiac conversation. Certainly, Superman, Lex Luthor, the Engineer. Those are the confirmed ones. You'll probably get some of the Kents in there, of course, the parents, both Ma and Pa Kent, and I'd imagine you would get some more of the Rick Flag Senior, and then the other members of Argus, Team Peacemaker, maybe, depending on if Checkmate is in there or not. But everybody have a safe week. We'll be back tomorrow with DCU Daily and Tier List Tuesday. Back Wednesday with DCU Daily, a special DCU Daily editorial for your Christmas Day. And then Friday, we'll be back with DCU Daily and Fancast Friday. I believe the poll for Fancast Friday is going to be going up soon, so be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily. Have a great day, evening, morning, night, wherever you are. And as always, we're not only blessed at the end, but we're also blessed from the beginning. See you next time.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chorus.
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you really I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all on the line. That's why I know that victory who's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka hunka!
Fuck Jeff Snyder and fuck Paramount too. And, fuck all the wrong people.